I did, Lisa. My friends, I'm sorry to be a little bit late today. A little bit, man, there's been a lot. There's been a lot that's been going on today, or leading up to today. I'm kind of thrown a little bit here. But it's 8 o'clock. Wasn't expecting to start doing this way. On such a sad note, I want to, and, those of you who have been following for a while know that I have a very special place in my heart for the Apollo 13 mission and for Jim Lovell in particular. And he passed away today. And it's just, I wasn't expecting it to affect me quite like this. But I thought I would start out today before we get going and talking about a nuclear reactor on the moon and gold in outer space and platinum and etc. I thought I would start off with a little piece, a little dedication. I wish I'd had something prepared, but this is as close as we come. The first godless sermon, now of 25, almost, I think this Sunday is 25, that I have given as the godless preacher for the Church of Korihor. The first of all of them was We're Going Home. And it's the story of how Jim Lovell is the reason why the Church of Korihor has this symbol. Hold on. We'll see in the upper right-hand corner. This symbol, which is the symbol of the Church of Korihor, it was drawn by hand by Jim Lovell in the flight manual of Apollo 13. And it was part of his ingenious move to get home and get his crew home. And symbolically for us as Korihors, it's basically means that we can use science, we can use reason, we can use the real world as it actually is to find our way home, to make a world that we would want to live in. I'd like to play a little piece of that for you now. Maybe the whole thing, we'll have to see. Before we get talking and Rick-rolling, and I wasn't ready for this, but let's do it. Rest in reason, Jim Lovell. We're going home. I want to tell you the story of the Korihor sigil, or the Koaz. That's the symbol of the Church of Korihor. Now, we're a church for godless people, so it's probably no surprise that this story, it's kind of geeky. In April 1970, Apollo 13 was on the third mission to land on the moon. But 2 days into the journey, an oxygen tank in their service module exploded, crippling the spacecraft and leaving astronauts Jim Lovell, Jack Swigert, and Fred Hayes in a desperate fight to get home alive. They had to shut down most of the electronics on their spacecraft, including the guidance computer that charted their way home. But on their way back toward Earth, they discovered that they were coming in too shallow and too fast. Unless they corrected course and slowed down, they would bounce off the Earth's atmosphere into space, where they surely would die. They figured that they could manually fire the lunar module's engine, but they would only have 14 seconds of fuel. Now, if you're going to be stuck in outer space without a guidance computer, the guy you want with you is Jim Lovell. When Lovell was the command module pilot on Apollo 8, Mission Control had him rehearse this exact scenario. Astronaut means sailor of the stars, but really every sailor is an astronaut, because one of humanity's greatest instruments has been the sextant, an instrument to judge your place by measuring your placement to the stars. Well, the Apollo 13 service module had a modern version of a sextant built into it. And Jim Lovell was the first man in space to navigate to the moon and back, at least partly, with only the stars to go by. But Apollo 13 had a problem that Apollo 8 did not. Debris from the explosion obscured Lovell's view so that he couldn't see the stars through the sextant. This is where it would be easy to give up. The crew of Aquarius could blame Houston, Houston could blame them. They could despair and shut down.
But none of those options were a way home. That's when Jim Lovell came up with a pretty innovative idea, the Crewman Optical Alignment Sight, or COAS. Now, the COAS is basically like the crosshairs of a rifle scope, designed to align the two parts of the spacecraft while they were docking. Now, Lovell fixed that bullseye instead on the only fixed point in space that he could see through the lunar module window, Earth. They chose the Earth's terminator line, the line between the day and night sides of the Earth, as the reference point, keeping the Earth's terminator line lined up in the COAS, with Jim controlling the yaw and the burn and Fred manning the pitch and Jack timing the burn on his watch. They fired the engines and corrected that angle in 14 seconds.
Guide me by morning light, keeping home in my sight. With doubts and dreams take flight. We flash in the dark, so let's flash bright. On a mission to save ourselves, break with dogma, with these shells. My friend, if you choose to be free, I'll light your path if you'll walk with me. We're going home to where we'll find a world where life is worth the climb. One day we will crash and we will die. Oh, my friends, that's not tonight.
You know, I remember when Apollo 13, the movie, came out, Tom Hanks says to Bill Paxton and Kevin Bacon, 0 Degrees, "Gentlemen, what are your intentions?" "I'd like to go home. You and I are living in an emergency. We can't see the stars, and our guidance computer isn't working. We have to line up the real world in the COAS. We have to use courage. We have to use tenacity and innovation. We're going to have to science the shit out of this if we're going to make a world that we want to live in. And to do that, you need godless people. This is our time. This is the time when we need atheists and agnostics to get religion, but instead of a religion about God, we need a religion about us. We are our saviors. This is our time."
No more shadows in our...
How many X-Bone Joes can you handle seeing on screen at the same time? I'm not going to watch the whole video. That's not what this is about. Jim Lovell meant a lot to me. That's all I have to say about that. So we're going to get into talking about some stuff that's going to make us laugh. Some of it may make you cry. We are talking about our non-zero chance to shoot down Alma. If you don't know who Alma is a bad dude. Alma is a bad dude. You may know him by his NASA name. NASA sometimes names things and is not very good at it. They call him 2024 YR4. You see? Not good. And it is a big space rock that has a non-zero chance of running into Earth. Why does that matter now? Okay. This week, I've been following it like every spare moment I have. I've been following this announcement by former Real World and Road Rules star Sean Duffy, who I don't know if you knew, is now the Secretary of Transportation in the Trump administration because, well, of course he fucking is. And I mentioned in our last broadcast, okay, the media loves to focus on that this guy back in the 90s was on MTV because, of course, our news networks are run by people who you called us the forgotten generation, the lost generation, the latchkey generation. and it's the same old schmucks running the thing, and now they're selling it between them and their weirdo conservative children. Anyway, it's a mess. For the first time, I think maybe television dying off is maybe a good thing. Maybe this is a good thing. Anyways, so that was a tangent I had not planned on, obviously. But in any event, this man, he did go on to become an attorney. He did go on to become Attorney General of Wisconsin, and he went on to become a congressman from Wisconsin. What he has not done ever is science and science administration. This is not this man's field. He is the transportation secretary. Okay, if you're a decent organizer and you know how to, and you're a political appointee, political appointees have been, for fuck's sake, Pete Buttigieg was the last one. And he was a mayor before that. So, I mean, yeah, you could get a trained monkey to do the Department of Transportation job. Okay. But now apparently Sean Duffy has enough time on his hand to moonlight as the acting administrator for NASA, when they just cut NASA's budget by 47% is the current projection in their new big beautiful bill. Now there's funding reallocated here and there, but this is the end result. As many as 4,000 NASA employees are now scheduled to quit in order to save enough budget to keep some of NASA's operations still functioning, and most of them are the most senior people in NASA who have the most experience. There's currently witnessing a brain. It's not even a brain drain. It's like a brain dump from the U.S. government in an effort to open up billions of dollars of funding. You notice they cut billions of dollars from NASA's budget going forward. And yet did the budget shrink? Cut money from the most important programs that everybody needs, not just in America. These programs that are suffering cuts, they include services that we provide to the entire world. And they're cutting them from NASA. They're cutting them back, making them scale back, and telling them, you're going to have to learn how to do without. There's a dog. He's okay. Oh, I just got him. So I couldn't hear it. Anyway, so this is where we are. I might have to go deal with that in a minute, but luckily we're almost to the part where everybody loves. I've almost got the new show opener done, but we're going to start with the lyrics hymn for Non-Zero Chance here in a minute. But I just want to show you this video first. I want to show you a couple of things just to kind of set the stage for what we're going to talk about here, because basically this guy has come out to say this week that we are now engaged in a new space race with Russia and China. We're going to get into it as deep as we can, and some of it's going to be funny. I wasn't going to show you this yet, but it just finished exporting. You guys know how I do this. I wait until the last minute to make sure I got like every possible thing in here. I just want to show you a couple of things that, give me a little bit of a chuckle here.
I mean, even the other day when they, whoa!
Let's do that again. This is Boca Chica. Boca Chica? This is Texas. This is the Starship 36 launch, or 36 static fire recently. I don't know if you've seen it. Check it out.
Yeah, probably. I mean, even the other day when they, whoa!
What?
That's
no! Oh my God.
It appears there has been a
Ship
row.
36 just blew up. Ship 36 just blew up. It just blew up.
So about those launch dates, I think that may delay a bit as we've just experienced a run of
Yeah, you think? I used to like SpaceX until I found out what a schmuck Elon Musk is. And frankly, my only hope for his Starship mission, I wish him well. I wish you well. Not in that Trump, Ghislaine Maxwell way. I wish you really well, Mr. Musk, and I hope that you take your starships and go off to Mars. But in order to get to Mars, he needs oxygen. Well, everybody needs oxygen. No, what I mean is that the liquid oxygen rocket fuel that these starships are built on, oxygen, you need it to run everything. It energizes everything in your body. But it also can be, but in its liquid and gaseous forms, it can be quite volatile. But how do you get it? So they have all these complicated schemes for how they can get a starship up into orbit. Not done so far. They're behind on that. Get that starship, big honking spaceship, up into orbit. Then from there, refuel it so that it can go to Mars. If you have to take off all that liquefied oxygen and or methane and get it up into orbit, and then figure out a way to get the extra fuel so that you can continue your mission up in orbit, it's extremely dangerous. Do you need to see it again? Here. This was a static fire.
Yeah, probably. I mean, even the other day when they,
Whoa! What?
That's not good.
No!
Okay. Imagine it in orbit. Not good. Not good. Now, maybe Elon will fix all these problems and he'll sort it all out so he can go to Mars. I hope so. It'd save us. Never mind. I'm not going to say it. Not even going to say it because it could be misinterpreted. Not even going to say it. But go, Elon, go. And the thing is, what would that have to do with now Sean Duffy says we need a nuclear reactor on the moon? That's what we're going to talk about today. I just want to show you a little piece of this. No, we'll save it. We'll save it. So, and the reason why I'm trying to appeal to Mr. Donald Trump, I know I just sent you a letter on Wednesday, Mr. Trump, encouraging you to not pardon Ghislaine Maxwell, but that's not what we're talking about now. That's behind us, although still ahead of you, apparently. I've still got to get the press release published. I've had a hell of a week. But we're talking about how your guy, Sean Duffy, just told the world that he's going to build a nuclear reactor on the moon, on the South Pole of the moon. And everybody needs to understand this has got nothing to do with nukes. You use nuclear power. But nuclear power is a great idea. I don't think that we need it on the moon. Personally, I think solar will do you fine for everything you need. Maybe plutonium batteries. That's worked well for us in the past. It's got Voyager out there 48 years beyond its mission, out venturing into interstellar space with a little tiny, not a reactor, but just a little tiny battery. Well, tiny compared to a reactor. Now, to get a reactor up there on the moon, let's just put it like this. It's a challenge. And he says he wants to do it by 2030. And he has no plan for how to pay for it, given that his big, beautiful president just passed a big, beautiful bill that cut NASA's funding in half. So here's what I'm saying. There's good reason to put a nuclear reactor on the moon. And I get the geopolitical value of beating China to putting one on the South Pole so that you can become the gas station for all of the world's space projects. Because here's the thing, it's easier to get oxygen off of the moon. Yes, the moon has oxygen, supposedly. It's easier to get oxygen from the moon and load it up into a starship or any kind of spaceship, or to get, more importantly, to get hydrogen. And hydrogen is a very useful. And if you have ice, you have water. And if you have water, you have what? Everybody say it with me. H2O. Is it H2O? Gatorade H2O. You have twice as much hydrogen as you have oxygen, and that's very good news for you if you have spaceships that run on nuclear. Okay, but Joe, what spaceships run on nuclear? We still have to talk about that. I get it. We're going to talk about this. This is the whole point. It's one thing to say we ought to do it because it's the right thing to do. And it's another thing to say Donald Trump is president. Figure out how to get it done in that environment. And we can be mean and we can be nasty and we can say lots of rude things. Okay? And that won't get us anywhere. And we need money to do these things. It takes money to do all the things. And what we Corahors are trying to do is, we're going to touch on this real briefly here, and then we'll just come back to it later. Don't worry. If it's not your thing, it's not your thing. Mr. Trump, etc. Mr. Trump's presidency sycophants. I don't mean that. That's just for my audience. That's just for my people. They want me to say wild, crazy things. I like you. You're fine. You guys, you want a piece of the action, right? You want it to be lucrative. It's fine. Let's just talk about it. Let's just talk about the fact that you are sitting on a gold mine here, and it just so happens that you can help us Corahors with our new space agency we're launching. Yes, a church has a space agency. Why not? We're trying to use it to shoot down Alma. Shoot down is strong. That's strong language. We want to deflect Alma. And we think your nuclear reactor project would be much better spent doing that than just putting this giant ass nuclear reactor nobody needs on the moon just so that Elon Musk has to pay somebody, not mentioning any names, because literally we don't know, has to pay somebody to get his oxygen so that he can go to Mars. Elon Musk or anybody else, okay? So whatever that is about, okay? I'm still confused because we were supposed to have within 10 days of the announcement the name of the person. That's who I've been trying to figure out. Who is buttering Sean Duffy's bread here? How is this money coming back around? Look, let's no longer play the game of, wait, who says that there has to be bribery involved? We get it. It all runs on bribes. Fine. Here's what I'm saying. If you're going to go for the bribes, don't play Vladimir Putin's game and become a gas station. I mean, that's working out okay in Russia, except that right now it's actually not. And surprisingly, Donald Trump is the guy who's putting the hammer on him. Don't turn your back on this guy, man. He's serious. He holds a grudge. In any event, we are the Corahors, and we have renamed 2024 YR4 the asteroid that has the non-zero chance of hitting Earth and potentially causing massive amounts of damage and/or costing human life on December 22nd on or about 2032. We want to stop it. It's only got a 3% chance of happening right now. But by 2027, the next time we'll see this asteroid, it may jump up suddenly or jump down suddenly. We're hoping it jumps down suddenly to a 0 chance. But it might jump up. And if it does, it could be one of the most destructive things that ever happened on the surface of planet Earth and to the human species, if anybody cares. Smile. And remember, it's only a 3% chance right now. It's kind of it's a Schrodinger's space rock situation. As long as we don't live past 2027, it's only a 3% chance that it's going to hit us. That Alma is going to hit us. But, hold on, I'm going to get loaded up. It's only a 3% chance. But some of us probably will be alive past 2027, in which case it will either be one of the coolest things that will ever happen that we'll ever see, or it'll be very, very bad. So that's why we're launching our own space agency. We're going to try it, and all we need is money. The rest of it, we're going to figure out. Right now, between 2025 and 2027, it's kind of our geeky SaaS talk phase. It's like, Alma, we're going to get you. You ain't nothing, Alma. Your mother was a protoplanet. Right? So we are confident in that we probably aren't going to have to do this. But we're confident that if we do have to do this, like we've committed to do, all we need is for some rich person or a bunch of persons to come together and say, we'll give you the money. What's the plan? Right now, we're in the let's come up with a plan stage. And it might involve having to grease the skids a little bit here with a little bit of gold and a little bit of platinum. Do I have your attention, Mr. Trump? Did you say gold? Did you say gold? Did you say platinum? I like platinum. I don't know if he does, but yeah, a lot of it. Huh? We have a non-zero chance.
From empty pews to reasoned thought, we'll defend our pale blue dot. If the danger's great, but the odds are small, we Korahors will heed the call. True saviors, but not from sin. We have no hope but what's within. We were not born to be heroes. Our chances small, but never zero. Non-zero chance. Take to the sky against all odds. We will fly. Count us down. Our last advance. This is our non-zero chance. Fueled by hope, reach for the stars. Prometheus fire within our hearts. Though we may be the unlikely crew, in one another our trust renews. Non-zero chance. Take to the sky against all odds. We will fly. Count us down. Our last advance. This is our non-zero
My friends, we have a non-zero chance. Let's get it. Richard Branson, where are you? Godless whore, you're going to fit right in with us. I don't know about you worry me a little bit with the island full of naked ladies and stuff. I mean, I'm not against it. I have consent questions. Naming everything virgin, this and that. I have questions. I have questions, Sir Richard, but we can get past that, dude. You got the money. You got the infrastructure. Let's save the world. Come on, man. We got a non-zero chance, Richard. Anyway, let me tell you about this nuclear reactor. First, I want to show you some more video because this has gotten weird, this nuclear reactor thing. Okay, I just want to show you a couple of things here. We already did that part. Okay. I'm doing everything out of order. Okay. I mentioned before, if you are not aware, be aware. You may have heard that all there is on the moon is regolith, meaning dust and rocks. It's not entirely true. It is pretty well confirmed, first of all, that there are moonquakes and there is seismic activity on the moon. There are volcanoes there, which should, like, what? But also on the south pole of the moon, there are craters so deep that sunlight never touches it. And what they have discovered, what's long been known, or pretty well known, is that there's water there. It basically has like a frozen ice cap kind of dug up deep into these craters that never see the light of day. Now, every 2 weeks, so a moon day is a month. It's 14 days of light and 14 days of dark. So if you're going to run something on solar power on a permanent moon base type of situation, if you have to have a permanent moon base, and guess what? We don't have to have one. Now, if we had one, could it be useful? Yeah, there's lots of things we could do with it. But okay. But if you're going to have power, how are you going to have power with 14 days of darkness if you run everything on solar? During the daytime, when you're facing towards the sun, apart from lunar eclipses, which are and during the day, I mean, you've got power for days and days. The answer is you get batteries and you charge them up and you'll be fine. The other option is you put solar panels on this side, put solar panels on that side. Then the sun doesn't set. It's always there. It's just always shining only one part. It only sets for you. It doesn't set for everybody. It sets. The only time the sun sets on the moon is when the earth gets in its way. Okay. So the rest of the time you got sunlight somewhere. So you build a little infrastructure. But it's been known for a while that if it turns out, and it turns out very probable, that there is water tucked up on the butt of the moon, we're going to go get that water. Even in the television show you can watch on on Apple Plus, For All Mankind, this is a series, I don't know if you've watched it, but they basically hypothesize, what if during the 80s, during the Reagan administration, we had basically launched Space Force and weaponized, militarized outer space, sort of like the Soviet Union did, with very little, kind of playing at this theme. What if we had militarized the moon? Which was a possibility. And some might even say something we've sort of done. But this is basically how valuable. I thought that they did a great job in the show of demonstrating what might happen if we militarized the ice on the moon.
Have faith in Abraham Lincoln's words that right makes might. And in that
Ronald
faith
Reagan
led us to the end. Dare to do.
If you can't tell, this is supposed to be Ronald Reagan, like giving them a pep talk about how the Russians, who have currently occupied one of these ice craters and are mining it for energy, and he's basically pep talking them into a military raid.
Our duty as we understand it. Thank you. God bless you, and God bless America.
It's a little scary.
90 seconds to drop point.
Holding it 5 meters. Steady at 5 meters.
Steady. We have canyon entrance. Hang on out there. Some tight turns coming up. All right, commence with final run. 60
These
seconds
people
to
are
drop.
space marines. I mean, you can see it, right? They're playing it up. They're playing it up, you know, for art. But art imitates life here, right?
Hold on.
It would be more or less like that. It would be more or less like that.
Tracy Stevens, you were a badass.
And then they start running, and of course the space marines come in with their guns. I mean, what are we going to say? These are like air rifles. I mean, how much air, you know, etc. But yeah, they take up the Soviet Union flag and toss it. They plant the American flag. You get the idea. It's machismo. Okay, this is us being America. Bah, bah, bah. We did this to indigenous people. But, you know, we weren't the first ones. We weren't the only ones. Does that make it better? Now, this becomes relevant because we're living now in an age where these values are the values that dictate policy in our world. There's a very important person we're going to talk about here in a minute, who used to make technology and policy decisions at NASA, who is going to become central to this whole story. And I want to get a chance to talk to you about that, about her, and about how we actually can use this logic to try and make something happen here that can make some people very rich. Y'all want to get rich, don't you? Got a great idea for you. We're leading up to it. In a moment, I'm gonna spoil it a little bit here. I just want you to see, this is Sean Duffy being asked just 3 days ago during a press conference where he is fulfilling his role as the Secretary of Transportation. And he gets asked about this thing from his night job as the now interim director, the acting director of NASA. What is this that you've been saying about that we're going to put a reactor on the moon? We're going to launch it in 2030. And he is not ready. I just want you to point out here, we're also going to talk about this guy right here. This guy you're looking at, Mr. Baldy guy. Watch him.
On setting up a nuclear reactor on the moon. What challenges do you and the experts anticipate with that?
Okay, just to clear the thing. So the guy on the right is Brian Bedford. He used to be, no, he still is, I believe, the CEO of Frontier Airlines. He's also the guy who's making decisions for the whole airline industry right now, which, you know, don't let that bother you. Don't let that bother you. Good job, Brian. You're going to do great. Brian, he's not the Messiah. We got 3PO here. He's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy. I agree, 3PO. The show is entertaining. It got boring for me about when they start going to the moon, to the Mars missions, but it is some aspects of it. But okay, so this is what I'm saying. Let's live in this. We're in this world where you can get rich doing military stuff, or if you're going to do anything with your government, it's got to make everybody in government, all the bureaucrats, super wealthy. Okay, then you're doing it wrong. Okay, you're doing it wrong. This is a meeting they had where Sean Duffy and Brian, is it Bedford? They talked about the fact that they've now deregulated beyond line of sight drones. Basically, most drones, basically the rules, there were separate rules for drones that you can fly where you can see them with your eyeballs. And then they had a set of completely different regulations for technology where you can basically make your own Predator drone. Okay, that's a whole different thing. It's a whole different thing to say we're going to take a drone and send it out there, It's going to deliver it and it's going to handle it by itself, or somebody's going to monitor it while it flies itself out there. And then for very important reasons relevant to national security, relevant to public safety, public health, and just the noise factor, because these things are noisy. There are important regulations. There were important regulations. They're here to celebrate. We did away with all that. Fuck it. What's the worst that could happen? Businesses can business to more business. Irony. They're here to talk about how the government is going to do less so that they can cut the red tape and let business do more. And you can imagine if Amazon, for example, has no regulation on it telling them what they can do or can't do with drones, surely you and I as consumers only stand to benefit. I thought we were going to talk a lot more about Jeff Bezos today than we ended up doing. So he's here to give information about this new drone policy. And instead, they don't want to talk about that because you said you wanted to beat China to putting a reactor on the moon, dude. Talk about this.
And how critical is that we beat China in winning the second space race?
I didn't think the moon was going to come up today. I wasn't prepared for that.
You are the acting NASA administrator.
And it didn't come from Politico, so that's wonderful. Listen.
Okay. Made me forgive my drinking problem. Made me spill. Brian. First of all, solid burn. We all wanted it to happen. Everyone wanted to tell Sean, you are the acting director of NASA. Okay. But okay, fine. The acting administrator. Okay. That's done. But yeah. So this is Sean's job. He's got to shift into night job mode because he is now the head of an organization that shed all of most 4,000 of its top brass employees so that the organization could continue to function with its cut budget. And now he's being asked about, didn't you just say you wanted to beat the Russians and the Chinese to a reactor on the moon and he is not ready? Shawnee, even if that's true, don't say it that way. Phrasing.
So this is not a new concept. This has been
true.
Discussed under Trump 1, under Biden.
True.
But we are in the race. We're in a race to the moon, in a race with China to the moon. And to have a base on the moon, we need energy. And some of the key locations on the moon, we're going to get solar power. But this fission technology is critically important. And so we've spent hundreds of $millions studying, can we do it? We are now going to move beyond studying, and we have given direction to go, let's start to deploy our technology to move to actually make this a reality. And I think the stat we have is it's a 100 kilowatt output. That's the same amount of energy a 2,000 square foot home uses every 3.5 days. So we're not talking about massive technology. We're not launching this live. That's obviously, if you have any questions about that, no, we're not launching it live. But again, energy is important. And if we're going to be able to sustain life on the moon to then go to Mars, this technology is critically important. And I would just note that we're behind, right? If we're going to engage in the race to the moon and the race to Mars, we have to get our act together. We have to marshal all of our resources, all of our focus on going to the moon, which is what we're going to do. And again, there's a lot of things that NASA does, and a lot of people love a lot of the things that NASA does. But this is about space exploration, and this is about this next phase. A lot of people don't know even what Artemis is. Everyone knew what Apollo was. We all knew, the whole world knew what Apollo was. We were going to the moon. Artemis is we're going back. So,
okay, before we get into that, we might not have time to get into that. It was funny though. You'll just take my word on it. Okay, we did go to the moon, in spite of what some people think. The Apollo missions were those missions. That's what Apollo was. Artemis is we're going back. Worst sales pitch. Worst. Artemis is we're going back to the moon, potentially to stay, potentially to put permanent operations on the moon, and that is still shaping up. That is still happening, okay? A lot of cutbacks on a lot of other things, and a lot of the top brass who would have been very useful with all their years of experience in making these things happen, that those people are leaving. And as I covered in our last episode of Non-Zero Chance, there's the Voyager Declaration, which 360 employees of NASA put their careers on the line to sign a statement stating that they are worried about the potential loss of human life from these from the cuts that are happening up there. So it's not great. Okay. Now, okay. So, but is a lunar nuclear reactor beyond possibility? No. Is it ready to go by 2030? You guys know I don't like optimism. I like a can-do attitude, but that's not the same. But, I do believe in the power of positive thinking. I'm a pessimist who believes in the power of positive thinking, at least my version of it. And let's say yes. Let's say we have the most brilliant people in the world. We've got the most well-funded space, governmental space agencies, now 2 of them, in the world. Yeah, we could do it. Right now, the technology's not there. There are prototypes of something that we could do, but in 5 years, could we scale down the size of a nuclear reactor, which is the major concern here, because even the more transportable versions of it are still too big to lift with any of our rockets. But can you make one? Can you downsize it? Well, we've downscaled a lot of things. I mean, look at the things we can do. Yeah, sure, we can figure it out. So let's say yes. Let's say it's possible to downsize a 100 kilowatt reactor so that we can deploy it to the moon. So we can launch it on a rocket and or deploy new rockets that can launch it that far up to the moon. Right now, as I understand it, the objective here is to get a lander that is a reactor that will be assembled on Earth, Sean Duffy says, and launched to the moon, landed on the moon, kind of like the LEM in the Apollo missions. It has to be about 16 metric tons is about the limit, as I understand it. As far as I know, and I've looked into this, they don't make 100 kilowatt nuclear reactors that of that weight and size. That's still a journey. Okay, the technology is going to have to improve. But okay, let's say it's doable. Then, as far as I know, the main rockets that are in operation that can deploy it are going to be SpaceX's Falcon Heavy or Blue Origin's New Glenn. At least in the American sphere, there's a possibility we could outsource, outside the country. What's the likelihood of that happening at this administration? I think probably poor. So, either Elon Musk or probably Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos is going to have to deliver this nuclear reactor, but we have to come up with it. And we got 5 years to do it. This is the plan. And for all we know, it's going to happen. So, okay, let's support it. But why? Why? Well, as you heard, Sean Duffy, he plays blackjack here, okay? He shows one card to the world, or his dealer does, and he's got one card that only he sees. The one card he sees, we don't know yet, is who's getting paid. Who's getting the back-end sweet deal? Sean Duffy's not coming out here and doing any of this for science. If we were doing it for science, there's a whole, first of all, if you're doing things for science, why did you cut the budget? Why did you cut not only science budget over there? I'm not going to highlight that, Joey, but you're right. You know, it's one thing if you say you want to support the science, or because you want to support the Artemis missions. The Artemis missions were not the Artemis mission was not dependent in any way on deploying a nuclear reactor on the moon. Does it hurt to have a nuclear reactor on the moon if you're going to send the Artemis mission? No, 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 yeah, that's good. It's helpful. No, absolutely. But that's not the reason why. That's not what's going on here. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, let me pull things down here. We're not going to get a chance to watch this. Basically, that guy, Brian Bedford, the guy who smirked at him, this is him on Undercover Boss. He has lunch with the lady. They pray together. She tells him that her son was murdered in Colorado, and he tells her here that he's going to name a plane after her son because he died.
Pick your animal for that plane,
and that she can pick the animal that goes on the tail of the plane. So basically a saint. That's it. It wasn't that funny now that I think about it. I laughed, especially when they pray together. And it's like, and she tells him the story, and he goes, well, that's the best that you can do. What you've got to do is just wake up every day, be a good person, and pray to God and trust God. And I'm sitting here going, this is the guy who's head of the FAA now? With all the problems that they're having this guy owns an airline? This guy's making... That is not the way. We are not safe. We are not safe. Okay, let me show you something. All right, we're going to go to the slides now. Whoa. We are high tech here, guys. High tech. So high tech, I didn't even load them yet. Google Slides. Are you kidding me right now? Not right now, Google. Show me my slides. I will strike you. I will. Oh, okay. Never mind. Cancel. Here we go. Processing. Oh, yeah. All right. So I just want to start like this. Remove. Ah, there you go. I can do this. We got the technology. This is Psyche. Well, the big rock is 16 Psyche. Okay. The probe in front of it is the Psyche mission. All right. Now, Mr. Trump, if you get a chance to look at this, first of all, hello. Did you get my letter about Ghislaine Maxwell? We won't talk about it right now. I sent it to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. I also sent it to the press. Hope you don't mind. So in 2029, NASA's Psyche mission will arrive at 16 Psyche and determine for sure what it is made of. This is 16 Psyche. Scientists think that it might be the ejected core of a planet that smacked into another planet a long time ago. Now, NASA launched a mission in 2023 that will arrive in July of 2029. And already observations from on the ground are suggesting that Psyche may not actually be what we thought it was. But we won't know until it arrives in July of 2029. Why should we care? Let me tell you, and this is important. Sorry if you hear lots of mouth sounds. Sorry, I'm trying to stay hydrated. Why should we care about 16 Psyche? The answer, frankly, is because it would help us to understand how planets are formed. And it would help us to understand more about what this brilliant, magnificent universe that we've been born into is, how life came to be on it, how all of it came to be, how these stars became the engines of creating us and what our consciousness in this experience means. That's why we should care. But the real reason why we do care is that it might have a shit ton of gold and platinum on it. So how much? We don't really know. These are very wild perspectives. Okay. Psyche may have about 1 to 14 trillion kilograms of gold, and maybe between 7 and 145 trillion kilograms of platinum on this one rock. Okay, we don't know, but we know that it's likely that 30 to 60% of its volume is metal. So far, what we know, what we can tell with spectrography, what we know with judging the light that bounces off of it is that there appears to be some rust. If there is rust, there is iron. If there is iron, that's the way I understand it, my very not science background, just geek. If there's rust, there's iron. If there's iron, there may very likely be gold and platinum and other precious metals, cobalt, etc. And so this could be, we could find out in 2029 that this asteroid has more precious metals mineable from its surface, because there's not a whole bunch of rock presumably in the way, it's somewhere near the surface or on the surface, then we would find, if we mined all the gold and platinum on the surface, on the crust of planet Earth. Okay. Now, if you never mind the fact that it's so freaking far away, we launched it 2 years ago. NASA launched the mission 2 years ago. It's going to arrive 4 years from now. Imagine mining even a portion of that and then figuring out how to get it back here. So chances are, even if Psyche can be mined, it's not an ideal choice. Here's why it's important, though. We will have proven that there are asteroids like Psyche out there, and it's probably not the only one. And we could find some that are in a position where we could get them back if we had powerful and lasting infrastructure in space. And for that infrastructure to exist, you're going to need something that has staying power in terms of fuel. For that, nuclear is ideal. So let's talk about this. Okay, so this is my rant thus far. Okay, here's what you need to know. Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping, they are boys. And they want to be the gas station of space. They want Elon Musk to pay them when he needs fuel. Elon probably won't. Well, frankly, Elon at this point may not matter. But there are other countries and governments and companies that want to go to Mars. And if they're going to do it, they're going to need fuel. And if there is hydrogen and oxygen on the moon, and there almost certainly is, then that is going to be a much better way to either fuel nuclear or chemical rockets that have the thrust power to go to Mars. So these boys, they've seen the value. I mean, if you really think about it, Vladimir Putin's entire economy runs on the fact that he is the gas station for Europe. And how much of Russia's oil infrastructure he personally owns, I cannot stress this enough. Okay. No one knows. That should freak you out a little bit, because if the possibility that he owns 100% of his country's oil would mean that he is by far the richest man in the world. Okay. And here they are talking, and here they are. This is just a picture of them. One of their many meetings they've had. Okay. Here they are, and here they have made an agreement and expressed publicly that they plan to land a nuclear reactor on the moon in 2033, or somewhere between in the early to mid 2030s. So between 2033, 2035, as I understand it. But that means that they're going to have to come up with, once again, they're going to have to do the same thing. They're going to have a rocket that's powerful enough to get to the moon, carrying that kind of heavy equipment. Now, let me tell you about this, though. Let me tell you a little something, okay? Let me just get to my notes here. Okay, so their program is called is it ILS? Mm-hmm. Let me just give it to you here. Let me just read it to you. Is it the moon south? Okay, yeah. So the ice is incredibly important for future missions like Artemis, blah, blah, blah. What's important is that the ice is water and water is hydrogen. And that can be used for rocket fuel using solar or nuclear power. And oxygen is half of the ingredient you need for rocket fuels. Or it could be a rocket fuel in and of itself. Being able to make fuel on the moon would save huge amounts of money and make deep space missions much easier. For Mars missions, the moon's south pole could serve as a refueling station instead of launching all fuel, blah, blah, blah. We already did this. Sorry, my notes are... Okay. China and Russia aim to land a nuclear reactor on the moon between 2033 and 2035. Now, here's why that matters. Have you heard of the Artemis Accords? Basically, the United States has initiated our own space treaty, and it's called the Artemis Accords. And all these countries around the world have signed it. As I understand it, I believe even China and Russia. Again, my research, I've been doing tons, but we didn't get quite that far. But the Artemis Accords, basically everybody that I know of has agreed to it. Yeah. We all agree to these terms. Now, of course, Vladimir Putin, especially, or Xi Jinping, telling you that they agree to make a promise and to abide by a promise. Frankly, we're not good at it either. So whatever. But for what it's worth, the Artemis Accords basically say that nobody can own a piece of the moon. Yes, no, not even the south pole of the moon, where there may be rocket fuel in the form of ice and breathable air, et cetera, all the wonderful things you can do with water. But, however, there are so-called keep-away zones that we'll have to understand that when a country or a company is operating a mission on the moon, everybody has to agree that you're not going to enter that space, a la the clip we just saw with For All Mankind, that you won't enter that space while that mission is operating. Those are the rules. This is kind of kids playing on the playground rules. It's like, let's all agree, if I'm playing in the sandbox, while I'm in the sandbox, that's my turn. But here's the thing, little loophole. There's no rule that says how long that turn is going to be. So if you put a reactor on that southern ice cap, quote unquote, then you can stay there. You can make your turn last as long as you want it to be. And that means effectively you're doing the same thing. You guys heard Sean Duffy just there in that he says, we're going to claim the southern pole of the moon for America. So this is blatant admission that our plan here is to violate the Artemis Accords, is basically to exploit this loophole in the Artemis Accords and just take permanent control of all of the energy, all this potential energy that's discoverable on the moon, and that we are going to beat them to becoming the world's gas station, presumably because we need that fuel for our mission to Mars, which is still not really planned, and we need it for our Artemis missions. We don't. And because we need it for a long-term presence on the moon. We do not. And so it's like, this is bad all around. This is bad policy. So, but he is relying on very good technology policy. I might have to go and just make sure that I have a happy autistic boy, because I might have an angry autistic boy I might have to deal with. But in any event, so this is why. Let me show you something. Okay, so the person you're going to see here is, forgive me if I get the name wrong. Here, I'm going to read it here. I'm make sure I'm looking right at it. I'm not great with all languages here. It is Pavya Lal, PhD. She is the former associate administrator for technology, policy, and strategy, and former chief technologist acting for NASA. And her specialty, she's an extremely intelligent person. And basically, her policy, her whole life has been dedicated to technology, making technology happen by motivating government, by getting the government to do it. And because it's one thing to say, here we got this technology and can do these many wonderful things. We've had nuclear reactors and nuclear propulsion since the 60s. The plan during the Apollo missions was that one day we would put rockets in space that ran on nuclear energy and could just run, and America would just own space. We would dominate in space, and nobody could ever beat us. The Soviets tried to do the same thing and launched and wound up launching a nuclear reactor that went haywire and spread and crashed back into Earth. And the cleanup took decades to get all the damage cleaned up from that accident. From that, but before that, basically after the Kennedy administration and the Johnson administration, you have all these Apollo landings happen during the Nixon years. And Nixon, kind of low grade, hated it because it was seen as Kennedy's achievement, that ultimately the NASA and the Apollo program were the success of Kennedy's challenge. But part of Kennedy's challenge, if you watch his congressional appearances where he came out to say, what we need to do, the plan for outer space is this. Yes, we're going to send a man to the moon and return him safely to the Earth, but then we're also going to send up rockets that can build like an infrastructure in space where we can make permanent operations in outer space, including the moon. Yeah, absolutely. But all of that was based on nuclear technology, and the U.S. government actually built rockets that run on nuclear propulsion. And it was a pretty good idea that we just kind of abandoned because, frankly, the Republicans saw NASA as a Democrat achievement and saw the moon landings as a Democrat's achievement. And in spite of the fact that it was a bipartisan thing during the Kennedy and Johnson years, both parties were excited about it. Everybody was excited about it. That's part of why it worked. Anyways, so this person right here, she was in charge of figuring out how do you make a challenge in this modern age that will make technology, that will take us into the next epoch of technology. And her focus in this paper they wrote with this man, Roger Myers, PhD, who basically worked for Aerojet Rocketdyne, and is one of the world's leading private sector consultants and experts in spaceborne nuclear technology. And they teamed up to publish this paper that basically said, we want to put a challenge to the government and to NASA especially, and to the Department of Defense, because remember, now America has a military presence and a military space agency. What could go wrong? But they put out there this challenge. Now I tell you why that's important. You heard Sean Duffy there in a minute say, we need a 100 kilowatt nuclear reactor. Why? First of all, Sean, when you see this, and you won't, when you see this, why? You forgot to say why. All you said was to beat the Russians and the Chinese, or beat the Chinese particularly. The Russians and Chinese aren't planning to put anything like that kind of infrastructure. Their plan is to put solar infrastructure on the moon and then support that with a nuclear reactor as well, so that they have claiming rights to the southern pole of the moon. But that's mainly why they want it. They want access to the water. This nuclear reactor is about the water. It's about getting water off the moon and turning it into energy. But energy for operations on the moon, they're still principally going to rely on solar. And so this 100 kilowatt thing, where does that come from? Let me show you. This is an actual photo from the paper, an actual still from the paper. It's a little difficult to read there, so I'm going to read it for you. You see this table here? You see that there are three options. This is why this woman is brilliant, actually, because she actually names things in a better way. I really wish I had zoomed in on this. Let me read it to you. But basically, okay, I have it pulled up on my computer. Maybe I should just pull it up on my computer where you guys can see it. Yeah, that's what we're gonna do. No, that just makes it too complicated. Okay. Basically, the table you're looking at there displays three options. On the left column there, you're going to see you're going to see the names of them. They are from top to bottom, most expensive, most risky, to less expensive and less risky. The first option one is go big or go home. Option 2 is chess master's gambit. And option 3 is potential light the path. And this is why it's brilliant. She's named them things that people who get elected to Congress can understand. It's either the go big or go home, or it's the chess master's gambit, or it's the potential light the path. Now, if you look through all of these descriptions, so the demonstration here, again, this table is brilliant, actually. She said the go big or go home is a power or NEP flight demo by 2030 with a ground test by 2028. NEP is a nuclear propulsion engine, and a massive engine that shows that we can move rockets around in space and dominate in space without chemical fuel. Of course, there are chemicals involved in it, but instead of launching it with kerosene or methane or something just off of Earth, we can get around and jet around in outer space like the Starship Enterprise, basically, with engines that just go and go and go and go and go and go. And that's pretty cool. And then, but what scale? A 100 to 500 kilowatt class. That's the scale, is the third column there. The lead organizations for Go Big or Go Home are NASA or the Department of Defense, with the Department of Energy as a partner. That's basically what Sean Duffy is talking about here. The rough cost will be $3 billion over 5 years. Again, they just cut NASA's budget in half, so how are they going to do that? And the risk profile is high. So basically, that's what Sean Duffy is saying here, is he wants to go with that. This is someone from NASA whose job it was when she worked at NASA, whose job it was to make space projects happen. And she says the next space race is to build a 100 kilowatt nuclear reactor on the moon. Then, by golly, gee willikers, that's what we'll do. And that's the whole thing. That's the whole plan. He doesn't have a plan for who's going to build it unless he does. And if he does, that's the other card. That's the card we're not seeing. So he has set himself the challenge to, within 10 days, we're up to what, 5 days now? TikTok, Sean. He's got like 5 days to name who's going to be in charge of making all the decisions for how to deploy this nuclear, how to build a nuclear reactor, how to deploy it on the moon. And he knows that from that point on, and for the rest of this administration, because again, 2030, Donald Trump's administration is going to end before that happens. He's going to spend the rest of this administration having to answer for who he put in charge of this nuclear reactor project. And if it's somebody who used to work for Elon Musk or currently works for Elon Musk, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a major question. He's going to have to answer that all the time. And if it's somebody with connections to Jeff Bezos, then he's going to have to answer those questions. If it's Rolls-Royce, which is one of the companies that's involved, General Motors could get involved. General Electric could be putting in bids. All of these companies are all abuzz right now, and they have companies that just make nuclear reactors for outer space. And that's all very perspective and theoretical. Well, but it's very practical. They do have a lot of technology that will work for it. There's all these companies ready to put in bids saying, we'll build it. We'll build this reactor. We'll go out there and do it. But here's what I want to just hear me out. Mr. Trump, when you see this, remember what I said a minute ago about that Psyche asteroid? It's too far away. But the idea works. M class and S class, I believe, asteroids, and there are a lot of them out there. They generally have a lot of metal, and among the metals in them, yeah, gold, platinum, tons of it. I mean, there is more gold, platinum, and precious metals of all various kinds, including iron, which will be very useful if we start building things in outer space. If we want to build spaceships in outer space, if we could build a shipyard, the orbital shipyards like they have in Star Wars or Star Trek, it'd be ideal. You wouldn't have to lift it off of Earth. You could build it in space. Well, if you have rocks that have iron on them, you could use them to build those things. And you're not going to build any kind of rockets, any kind of vehicles for space that are going to accomplish those kinds of objectives using chemical rockets. You need nuclear energy, and particularly you need either nuclear thermal energy or you need nuclear electrical energy. Let's not get mucked up in the weeds here, but you need rockets that can just go and go and go and go and go. And what these two people here are talking about, let me just pull that back up. This is the plan for that. But you'll notice there are 3 plans. This is the go big or go home thing. She knew. These people are brilliant, man. They're brilliant at policy. I watched an interview with this woman, and she was talking about working at NASA. You learn that technology is grand. This is not a direct quote. That technology is grand, and you're going to need new technologies to advance space exploration. But in Congress, nothing happens because it's a good idea. And with the White House, nothing happens because it's a good idea. Everything happens because somebody's getting rich off of it. So you can lean away from that. You can be disgusted by that, or lean into it and say, come on, let's go get that money. Okay. I'm sure it's very lucrative to sell rocket fuel for going to Mars. But that's if you're going to Mars. And there's nobody right now who has a real shot at that. Do I need to show you what happened to Starship 36 while it was ramping up to static fire in the rain? Okay. So, I mean, you're banking on a long shot here with this gas station on the moon thing. And hear me out, Mr. Trump and company, all you people out there, we have our differences. I don't like most of you, but let's put them aside. You want to get rich. I want to save the world. Let's do this thing. And nuclear energy is a great way to get it done. So you see this chess master's gambit. So the first option was go big or go home. We're not even going to talk about light the path. Light the path is basically similar to like what the DART mission was. We talked about this before. The DART mission was just a proof of concept where NASA took about a refrigerator-sized probe and ran it smack into an asteroid to prove that they could change the direction of an asteroid. Well, something that wasn't really expected was that when they hit that thing, when they hit that asteroid, it ejected so much material that it's now raised a new concern. Running smack into an asteroid, if you do it too late in the cycle, may actually deflect the asteroid. It may at the same time cause a giant meteor shower that's still in the path. And so that's a problem. Okay. Now, obviously, a meteor shower of small rocks like Alma, broken off of Alma, would probably be less dangerous than Alma hitting Earth in 2032. But it's still taking one problem and replacing it with another. Maybe it would be possible to use something called a gravity tractor. This is another deflection. So anyways, but the DART mission was a cheap mission, cost about $500 million. It was a cheaper mission to just show You can do it. You can make it happen. Well, that's what Light the Path is. Light the Path, it would cost about $100 million. Or is that, wait a second, let me just make sure I'm quoting that exactly right. Yeah, more or less $100 million. And basically, it is just to put a commercial RPS demo by 2028. Or in other words, build a reactor that could go to the moon, just to show that it could be done. That's the Light the Path part. That, I agree, it's not impressive. That's not impressive enough. That's not going to work. But the good news for Light the Path, the lightweight plan, is that you don't need to get the government to buy in for as much of the tax dollars, right? It's only $100 million, and you could probably get most of that to be given to the project by billionaires who own space agencies, right? But Chessmaster's Gambit is something that I think we haven't paid enough attention to here. Chessmaster's Gambit is the second option. I just want to read it to you here a little bit. It's a little hard to read on there, so you get to look at my face while I read it to you. Okay. The idea of Chessmaster's Gambit is that it's 2 power demos, one in space and one on the surface by 2030, with a ground test by 2028. Okay. Instead of 100 kilowatt class reactor, again, there is no reactor known to mankind currently that can fit inside the fairing of a rocket that we have and get to the moon that can generate 100 to 500 kilowatt. And there really is no justification behind why right now there's any urgent need to do it, other than we do them because they are hard. Okay, great. It's a challenge. We're putting up a challenge. Is that it? No, it's about politics, right? Well, this Chessmaster's Gambit is saying basically do 2 of them. Do one propulsion engine in space on a scale that never has been seen before, and do one nuclear reactor on the moon. Then you get your basing rights. You get to claim this area as a keep out area, not because we are taking it for America, but because, it's not safe for you to just enter in. We're doing experiments here, when really what we're doing is trying to get rich by becoming the gas station for all of outer space activities, including Mars. And so you can still do that, but do it with a 10 to 100 kilowatt reactor, a much smaller reactor of the kind that we have. We already have those. Those are very plausible, and we can land them. We have rockets that can carry them to the moon. New Glenn, carry one of those reactors, no problem. We could get Falcon Heavy can go to the moon and deliver one of these reactors. Why build a theoretical reactor of 100 kilowatts? At this point, it's just machismo. It's just to show off that we can do it. And frankly, it's not that impressive. And if it's to get rich, listen to me, Sean, Donnie, you sundry Republican boys, listen to me. For people who are good at making money, you're not very smart here. This energy, this little bit of water on the moon, that's chump change, man. That's nothing. Let's save the Earth from Alma. I want to show you guys something. Do I want to do this? No, I don't want to do this yet. I'm creating a mission patch for us. And it says on there a new slogan. I still haven't decided what our agency is going to be called, but we have a slogan. And it is Almam Pateri, which in Latin means, Alma, we're coming to get your ass. It's like, and it's beautiful. It's got a rocket. It's got Alma on it, or an artistic interpretation of it, and it looks like a NASA patch. And I was thinking we could do these. We could give these patches away with donations to the mission to go and do this thing, and we'll scale it up. And I'm still developing how that would look for what our objectives are between now and 2027 and now and ultimately 2032, in the event that the non-zero chance of ALMA hitting Earth goes up from 3%, which again, it has gone up just this year. We have seen the chance that ALMA is going to hit Earth has gone up from almost zero to maybe 3% or more, and now has a more than 4% chance. That's that. The other side is it's scaling up even faster, more than 4% chance that it will strike the moon on or about December 22nd, 2032. Good, maybe bad. Okay. Again, 92 chances out of 100. When ALMA gets here, it's going to be a badass show. It's going to be fun. We're going to watch it. We could, in which case, our mission against ALMA, if it's just going to land, if it's just going to strike the moon and cause a crater, then what I suggest we still go out there and we plan to send a probe to space. But it's just a suggestion, and we have a non-zero chance of actually doing it. I'm just saying, let's talk about it because we've got a couple of years here where we can do something. And so let's just talk about what would it look like? What would we do? Maybe instead of hitting ALMA and knocking him off course, we can land something on, we can land a camera system on the moon, on the side of the moon that ALMA is going to strike. And so we can live stream to the whole world what it looks like when a massive 15-story building size space rock runs into the moon and makes a crater. And we'll live stream the thing. That's a lot easier than running a probe into it. But we have to get some experts on here. We're going to have to talk about it. But hear me out. I just want to suggest to you, this Chessmaster's Gambit thing, this is better. This is better. Because basically what we would be doing is we'd be showing that technology that America has pioneered, that America has, and there are nuclear engines America just has in storage here. I'm not suggesting we use them, but it's been since the 60s that we have had these engines that can do this, that can actually maintain long-term missions in space of the exact kind that you would need for a mining mission, or that you would need. We team up, you guys, with your money-making abilities. You guys are so good at making money, right? Let's make some money for you. And for the Church of Korihor, help us beat our guy, because he pisses me off. And that's the last of those slides. Let's show some videos. So I want to talk because, oops, I'm going to remove that, and I'm going to kick it out of the studio. Okay, now I want to show you some more clips here because I say it once and no one takes it seriously. I'm not complaining. I say it, nobody takes it seriously. That's fine. I get it. I sometimes wonder how much I trust. I posted this. I mentioned this already at our last episode. I said this a couple of days ago on Facebook, and I do truly honestly believe it. There are people who think I am wrong. But they are, to a man, people who think the moon landings were faked, or that Jesus is coming back, or that guardian angels are looking over you, or that some facet of your day and the fortune of your day was determined by where this planet was in relationship to other planets and stars on the day you were born. So, they may be right that I am wrong, but I don't know how they presume to know. I want to show you something here, because the one person we all know we can trust.
So you can have.
Not that guy. This guy right here. My man Neil deGrasse Tyson has been weighing in this week about what he thinks about this nuclear reactor deal. Spoiler alert, he's for it. Not because we need it, but because anything he knows, what these people know, what we have known since Kennedy. If you say you need to get it done, it's not. Congress will put it off till kingdom come. If you say we're going to do it to beat the blah, 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 money starts dropping. And if you say, and we're going to get rich doing it, and it happens. So I'm not crazy. If Neil says it's the way to go, listen to Neil. Especially if he agrees with me.
So these are pretty safe reactors. I mean, nuke is like one of the two N words that you're not supposed to mention in polite company. so
just because it's you, Neil, we're laughing. We're nervous, but we're laughing.
So nuclear reactors have come a long way since 3 Mile Island, and so no, these are small. They're contained, and that might have happened anyway. What the announcement was about today was accelerating that, because there's a perceived, real or imagined, competition between our progress in space and that of China and other countries, especially China. But let me say that we are reacting to a perceived threat, and we're very good at that. Go back to Sputnik. Oh my gosh, we need a satellite. There was Yuri Gagarin. Oh, we need an astronaut. Up went John Glenn. So this has been our MO for 60 years. I'm not surprised that we're reacting in this way now. We have their.
Okay. He goes on. And so before we get into that, okay. So, my Republican friends, I have said so many nasty things about you and your little red hats. But hey, we're boys still, right? We're countrymen. You want to get rich? Let's get rich, bitch. You want to make Putin cry? I'm into it. Screw that guy. Let's make Putin cry. Let's make Xi Jinping go, why with these Americans? Why? I don't know what your fantasies look like. I'm scared to know. So, but here's what I'm suggesting, right? If we want to beat the Chinese to something, this reactor on the moon thing, it's small freaking potatoes, man. This is nothing. Let's go get some asteroids. We could redirect some asteroids to a position where we could catch up with it with more equipment and infrastructure and start mining these asteroids. Imagine if America had a space rock that had more fill in the blank than is available to mine on the entire crust of the planet Earth. Fill in the blank there. It could be nickel. Imagine if nickel is very common out in these asteroids. We imagine if we had more nickel than you could get on the entire planet Earth, because it's out, right? If it comes down to that, 3PO, I am going to start crying. But I'll buy into it. I'll get Neil deGrasse Tyson to talk about how Nutella is out there. We will get Nutella. There's Nutella for days out in this asteroid belt. Let's go get it.
Prototypes of this kind of reactor, we have to get it to the moon and deploy it. But if you have a reactor there and nobody to use it, that's kind of a little weird. But you get bragging rights. We have the first nuclear reactor on the moon. That has some value geopolitically, I suppose. But the point is, these reactors, these portable, transportable reactors, can sustain energy for years, and they don't succumb to the fact that 2 weeks the moon gets very cold and very.
Yeah, I talked about that, but let me just accelerate to where
they are not commensurate with one another.
Let me get back, because this is where my man Neil Tyson, my friend. I'm not going to say it any other way. This very brilliant and respected scientist and astrophysicist is going to say something may sound familiar to you, but if you hear Neil say it, maybe it's more important. I agree. It's more important to me, too.
This push to be ahead, simultaneous with the reduction of scientific funding across the board in so many other sectors, that they are not commensurate with one another. We were able to get ahead in the 1960s after being behind because the entire scientific enterprise.
Somebody back me up on this. Someone throw me out an amen here. When Neil deGrasse Tyson gets fired up, my soul is on fire. I mean, watch this. I'm going to rewind it so we can watch that start off again. See the glimmer in his eye. See the Carl Sagan mentorship in his eye that says, let's go, let's fire it up, let's get it done. I mean, I just love it. I do love to see it. It's so good. I got an amen. I'll get one out of Joey if I don't get it out of anybody. Oh, for hell's sake, Joe, what did you do?
Flowing by what is curious to me is this push to be ahead, simultaneous with the reduction of scientific funding across the board in so many other sectors, that they are not commensurate with one another. We were able to get ahead in the 1960s after being behind because the entire scientific enterprise was stoked by funding flowing by members of Congress. Basically, the entire Congress had that foresight. The role and value of innovations in science and technology, in our standing in the world, in our technological progress in the world, in our economic health in the world. These are the forces that are the engines of tomorrow's economies. So this is a weird combination of commands coming out of the administration. We got to be first here, but pull back over there, where so many other tangential innovations take place that cross-pollinate in the future. You don't see the cross-pollination now, but it happens. And
this is super important, and it's like a big heady idea. So those people who are coming in from this who don't think about space like space geeks do, okay? Just imagine what he's saying here, okay? Wi-Fi. Are you watching on Wi-Fi right now? Are you watching on a 5G connection? None of that was possible without the space race. Okay, basically all that technology started with NASA and using commercial enterprises. Companies were involved in this the whole time. My family got upward mobility. We're not rich. We're not a rich family, but by most, well, maybe by most of the world standards we are, but not by American standards by any means. But my grandfather was a chemist for a company called Morton Thiokol. And basically he spent his entire career and then retired with a decent retirement package and went on to work with the church. I don't think he worked for the church, but he anyways, the Mormon church, obviously. And, because he was testing solid rocket fuel, which was, as I understand it, basically originally like an adhesive, and they figured out that it could actually be a solid rocket fuel that could be stored for, indefinitely, where kerosene could not. And so, right. Morton Thiokol. Funny enough, in the Rollins family, when you sneeze, this Mormon family, when men sneeze, we go, oh shit. Oh shit. I guess that's not that funny. But anyways, it's always been the case that when the U.S. government invests in technology and space exploration and other scientific endeavors, especially in the Department of Energy, and these are departments are getting cuts across the board here, while defense is getting much more spending, and our budget's actually going up. It's not just NASA, it's the Department of Energy. It's actually more the Department of Energy than just about anywhere else. And that makes sense why Sean Duffy is actually in his moonlighting as the actual administrator for NASA. I really ought to say this more politely. In case Sean sees it. Hey, Sean, put it all behind us, buddy. Let's get together. You want to get rich, don't you? Let's go get that money. You like money? I feel gross doing this. You like money there, buddy? Let's go get that money. Let's go. You like gold? I think you know somebody who likes gold. Get that gold, bitch. There's more of it than you can dream of. It's out there. Let's go get that whale. But we're going to need nuclear energy. Well, here's the reason why that's important. I see what you're doing here, Sean, at least partly. I am very curious who you're going to put in charge of this. I'm watching you, boy. I'm watching you. I'm not going to stop you because you and I are now in the same game. You need rich people to pay for NASA missions. I need rich people to donate to my Church for Atheists so that we can shoot down a rock. We can shoot down a rock that's got a non-zero chance of hitting Earth in December of 2032. So you and me, we're like samesies, guy. We're two men who have no professional experience in outer space at all, running space agencies. You and me, Sean. Let's go get that money for you. Let's go get you that money. Anyways, but Neil gets it. These guys get it, okay? Because here's the thing. NASA has been here in Democrat administrations and Republican administrations. NASA has been here and been the most well-funded space agency, and really, I can't say it was the first, really. Really, Germany's was the first space agency, but we're not talking about that. We're not talking about any of that. We're not talking about that right now. We're not talking about Operation Paperclip right now. We're not talking about that right now. But this is the oldest, most well-funded, biggest big space agency in the world, and it wouldn't exist. Oh, don't do that. No, don't bring that up. Don't bring that up, Joey. And the whole world benefits from it. If you use Wi-Fi, it's because of the space race. It's because of NASA. If you use microwave, it's because of NASA. Pretty sure. All of this technology. I mean, every time you get in your car, you're using NASA technology or Department of Energy technology. And yes, not all of it is NASA. A lot of it is Department of Transportation technology. A lot of it is Department of Energy technology. I was shocked to read. I read the book a few years ago. It's really, really interesting about this topic, that most people don't realize that most of the research in biology, pharmaceuticals, all kinds of industries, not just energy, are managed by the Department of Energy, because the Department of Energy has more resources for scientific testing than just about any other organization in the world. And so they have these state-of-the-art laboratories. They're not always using them for their energy projects. So companies come in and use them. Schools come in and use them. And so the Department of Energy is actually much more important than people realize. But one of their primary things they do is that they have their own intelligence network to track all the fissile material in the world. Basically, the Department of Energy is in charge of keeping the world safe from a nuclear war. That's like a primary part of their purpose. And so, in addition to, they're basically a science-minded shadow government. Have I got any Republicans' attention yet? There's a deep state problem. Should we load it up with good words, with good, red hat words? There's a deep state, and this deep state organization, the Department of Energy, is freaking phenomenal, dude. Let's get that. Let's get these guys. They're working on making all of us rich. They're working on the technology that has made America the most powerful nation in the world. Why the hell are we cutting their funding? We should not be cutting funding to any of these programs, and we certainly shouldn't be turning it around. Now, here's where I'm going with that. Okay, and then we're going to have to wrap up because I got to feed these kids. But the Church of Korihor wants to shoot down a big space rock for more reasons than just that it has a non-zero chance of hurting people. Okay. It's because right now we are living in an environment where a handful of billionaires not only have the reins of powerful space-oriented companies, they have the reins of the governments that are supposed to regulate them. Not just in America. We're late to this, okay? And to some aspect, our oligarchs have always been in control, and they've always benefited. But as long as it was mutually beneficial to them and to the public, no one cared. I don't know if you've read. There was this interview I watched just yesterday or this morning. It all runs together now. Where Jon Stewart interviewed this guy who basically says, who did all this research into Apple's technology in China. You think of Apple in China, you think, oh yeah, they make all their products over there in China because it's cheaper there because they use slave labor. It's so much more devious than that. Where basically we now live in an economy where Apple thrives because they not only have the most popular, what was at that time the most popular phone in China was the iPhone before Huawei took off. But then they actually manipulated the market so that their competitors would have a place to compete with them, but that they get to select which competitors they were, and they could shut down. Apple started working their connections and got Huawei, the biggest, what was quickly growing to be the biggest phone manufacturer in the world, got Huawei declared a national security threat in America. And when that happened, suddenly their stock started to drop and their value started to drop, and suddenly this competitor started to sink down to where now Huawei has had all these years of stewing about how they were going to overtake Apple, and then Apple used government connections and market connections to basically shut them down, so that and to get other smaller competitors to overtake them and to take more market share away from them. That's the way I understand it, and I could be wrong. And they did this, that Apple had done this so that they could choose who their competitors were. And it's like so much more nefarious than a monopoly when you have people in this economy who are so powerful that technically they have more power in their hands than the government does, because the government's power is their power. And so we're living in this world, and we're going to have to use it to get things done. All I'm saying is this: okay, if we have to use greed or ambition, and we'll call it ambition. That's the word it's a very ambitious project. If we have to use greed as the motivator, all I'm saying is this: let's at least have some concern about the well-being of our species and of our beautiful little planet. Let's couple that in there. And if we can't stop it, if we can't stop this greed from running rampant all over the world, let's harness it for the benefit of everyone. And remember that it was supposed to be for all mankind. You look down on this planet from outer space. Astronauts from every country have done this. They call it overview. I'll show you this picture again. The picture you see behind me. Hold on. Okay, this is one of my most famous thumbnails for one of my godless sermons. This is my godless sermon, Can Overview Save the World, where I talk about how there's this thing that astronauts have experienced called overview effect. Well, that's me, if you didn't know. How many Exmo Joes can you see at the same time? And that astronauts look down on the world. I told the story of Rusty Schweickart, who was an astronaut on the Apollo 8 mission. And his job was to open the door of the lunar module and step out into space from the door of the LEM, and using the handrails on the side of the two spacecraft, rehearse what it would look like and whether or not it was possible to grab those handholds in the event that you got a lock, but the seal didn't allow for them to pass through from the LEM back to the command module, and they had to go back to Earth in the command module, basically strapping on their spacesuits, climbing into the command module, repressurizing the command module, and then landing on it. If you can't get back through the dock, if you can't get back from the inside of the two spacecraft, then you might have to crawl around on the outside. And so Rusty Schweikart's, this was a twofold experiment they were doing. There was that, and then it was the backpack that had basically a scuba tank in it. And they had to prove that the scuba tank, the life support system that fed his suit with air primarily, that it would work in outer space. Nobody had tried. Up until that point, every spacewalk had been done with a tether into the spacecraft. So this was the first time, but you wouldn't be able to do that on the moon. Well, not for very far anyway. And you wouldn't be able to do it if you had to transfer from the LEM to the command module. And so what they did, so he strapped on the tanks that they would have to, that Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong, I don't know why I always list them in that order, should be probably the other way, that Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin would eventually use on the surface of the moon. He strapped on one of those, stood in the LEM, depressurized it, threw open the hatch, and then went to grab the handrails, and crawl around over to the LEM on the outside of the craft. And something bad happened. Over in the command module, Jim Lovell, who again, rest in reason, sir, died today, passed. Jim Lovell and the commander, I want to say Anders, I don't remember, were in the command module with a film camera. I think it was a Bolex. I may have made that up because I have these bad experiences from film school. Anyway, they had the 16 millimeter camera, and they were going to film it on film, and the film jammed. And so they had to take 5 minutes to reload the film in the camera. And they're like, "Oh, Rusty, just hang up there. Hang on for 5 minutes. If we can't get this thing unjammed in 5 minutes, then you just do the experiment. We won't film it, whatever." And Rusty Schweickart experienced, I think they call it zero gravity sickness, space sickness. Anyway, basically, he was one of the first people to experience it. It basically ended his career in space, even though now NASA just trains astronauts for it. They're like, this is how you do it. And they use meditation, is my understanding. They basically use loving kindness meditation, which is Buddhist meditation, to teach astronauts this is going to happen. Sometimes you're going to be out there spacewalking, and your body suddenly freaks out, like your nervous system just goes in, like gets this terrible shock, right? And basically, it doesn't know which way is up or down. Your nervous system just like shuts down and goes into like this immobilized mode. And and it's dangerous. If you're spacewalking out there and this happens to you, you could float away. And so this happened to Rusty Schweickart, who was not like these other astronauts in this way. It's a very curious and interesting story, actually. Most of these, pretty much all of the astronauts in the Apollo missions were Navy pilots or commanders in the Navy. And they were basically on loan from the U.S. Navy. A lot of them had gone to war, and et cetera. And and they were brilliant. They were trained scientists. They were mathematicians. They were physical specimens, quite unlike most people. They were people who like to run. They were people who, etc. But they were also doing something stupid dangerous. So it's probably no surprise, especially guys like Neil Armstrong and John Glenn and freaking Buzz Aldrin. They were adrenaline junkies, dude. These are people who jumped out of airplanes for fun, right? They loved the rush. They were athletes. They were guys who really just loved the excitement of doing something that could kill you. And Rusty Schweickart was different. Rusty Schweickart studied philosophy. He had PhDs. And one of them, I believe, he had a PhD in like chemistry or astrophysics or something. I don't remember. It was like or engineering or something like that. I don't remember off the top of my head. But I believe the other one was like in literature or philosophy. He had degrees in, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong about this. He had degrees in the humanities. He studied the humanities. He attended groups where they meditated and stuff. So he was in a unique position here. First man in space, completely untethered to air from a spacecraft. His own air, standing there on the porch of the landing module. And his body went, the fuck? And freaked out. And then the camera jammed. And it was then that he had this embarrassing situation where he had to say, I don't think I can do it, guys. I don't think I can do it. I don't know what's wrong with me, but suddenly I'm dizzy. I'm spinning around. I can't. I don't know what's happening to me. And now NASA, they teach these astronauts to meditate. Get in here and say, let it happen. Let it go by. And in that moment, he said that they were loading the camera and they said, no problem, just stand there for 5 minutes, while we load the camera. If things change, then you do the walk, you do the crawl. If they don't change, that's okay. Just close the hatch, repressurize, and we'll just go on. We'll say, well, we at least were able to prove that the tank will work out in outer space in zero pressure. And then we'll just call it good. And so he had these 5 minutes where he was just doing nothing but hanging out in outer space. And in that moment, he looked down on Earth and he said, and had this epiphany. He had a spiritual experience that is so profound and so commonplace. On the International Space Station, they have a window that looks down on Earth. Just happens to be oriented that direction for, I'm sure, a very useful scientific purpose that I don't know. But they called that the overview room, basically. And astronauts from all over the world, Russian astronauts, American astronauts, Indian astronauts, Canadian astronauts, astronauts from all over Europe, human beings from all these different countries, from all over the world, have gone into this little portal to look down on Earth and experience overview effect. It was named later by another NASA astronaut, I forget which one it was, but he wrote a book about it, where basically every astronaut who has had this experience, virtually every astronaut or cosmonaut who's had this experience of looking down on Earth from outer space, has had this profound meditative experience, so profound, Rusty Schweickart, who never got to go back to space, has spent the rest of his life chasing it. Because and people have done everything from trying to create virtual reality goggles experiences. There's a place, I think in Canada or New York or something, where they let you walk around in this space. You pay like $80 to try and experience overview effect, and people say, I don't get it. I don't feel it. And that's why at the Church of Korihor, we created a new practice. We're experimenting with it. We're not very good at it yet. But we got this new process where we're coming up with how can a godless church create a compassionate meditation that works and achieves the same goals as loving kindness meditation and Buddhist meditation. And I say let's even make it a friendly competition, not because we're competitive people, but just to make it fun, just to make it interesting and say, let's see if we can create the best compassionate meditation in the world. And it's this godless church that does it, because it turns out people of different religions, people who believe in God, people who don't believe in God, can experience overview effect if they can get to outer space and look down on planet Earth and see that there are no borders out there. What there is instead is an atmosphere that if the Earth were an apple, our atmosphere would be about the size of the rind on the apple. And to see that where the water flows on planet Earth can change all of a sudden, and it leaves death in its wake. And to look down on it from outer space, Rusty Schweiker, one of the things he did when he had this profound experience overview that changed his life, he came home and he founded an organization, a foundation, whose sole purpose is to protect Earth from asteroids. Because he realized in that moment, standing on the porch of the LEM, that an asteroid impact killed most of the dinosaurs and could hit any one of us at any one time. Could hit us again at any one time. And we wouldn't know until it was too late. We don't have the technology. And now we're finally arriving at the point where we have spaceborne telescopes. Do you guys see that just a few weeks ago, the James Webb Space Telescope, an instrument that has peered back to the nursery of the universe and seen the oldest galaxies, photographed the oldest galaxies, photographed any point in time that we know of in the universe, has seen galaxies and been able to provide us with the chemical makeup of galaxies that are over 12 billion years old. That amazing, beautiful infrared telescope, after the discovery of ALMA, of our enemy ALMA, our arch nemesis, NASA placed a priority list saying, hey, what you're doing, James Webb, JWST, is very important, but we want you to prioritize something here. Turn and look at this guy, ALMA, this asteroid ALMA. Okay, they call it 2024 YR4. We call him ALMA. Fuck you, ALMA. What is it again? Almam Praeteri. I'm gonna show you guys next episode. I'm gonna show you guys the mission patch. It's not quite ready. It's not ready for prime time, but it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. But that we call this asteroid that because Alma, if you don't know, is a legend, is a nemesis, an evil villain from the Book of Mormon. They turned the JWST. Right. They turned to the JWST to look at Alma and take a picture of him. And that was the first time that we got a good look, that NASA got a good look of exactly how big this rock is. It's and it's 15. It's the size of a 15-story building. And all of that we didn't know since I launched this series. Two space rocks have come within 5 lunar lengths of Earth in just the last 2 weeks that were discovered in the days. It was discovered that they were on track to fly by Earth in mere hours before they actually did it. Vroom. And we have a network now that includes the James Webb Space Telescope, that will include the Nancy Grace Roman Telescope if it happens. Again, You know that Elon Musk sent Doge operatives to the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope facility to inspect it. And we don't know if they're going to, then now they pass this bill, they may shut it down. They may shut Roman down. It's a bad situation. But we have this technology that we are now using to track these near Earth objects. And Rusty Schweikert, it was when he looked down on Earth, similar to Exmo Joe here, to realize how petty it is to try and beat the Russians, to try and beat the Americans, try to beat the Chinese. Stupid. It's silly. It's ridiculous. They're human beings. We're human beings. We have this beautiful planet. This is our one chance. You have precious few years in this life. And you're going to use it, what? Trying to get more of what? Money? The fuck is that? It's something we need because we've decided that we need it. If only we could look at each other and develop a practice of looking at our worlds, looking at the animals and our impact on them, looking at this ecosystem and realizing how big an impact we have on them. And by the way, there are big fucking rocks hurling at us all the time. And we're now discovering becoming more and more aware than ever. We have no idea how many of these things, these asteroids and near Earth objects are just raining down on us all the time, barely missing us. And now they cut the funding for most of the programs that support those programs. Now, there are a few of these now they did actually preserve some funding for planetary defense, but it wasn't enough to begin with. So this is when people ask me, why are you talking? Aren't you supposed to be some kind of snarky church for atheists that's not really even real? I say, we're real. We have clergy, we have canon, we're recognized by the government as a church. And apparently the IRS just decided that we can even endorse political candidates if we wanted to, in spite of the fact that it's against the law. We're a powerful organization here. We just don't have much money. But that could change like that overnight. I believe that. I may be crazy, but I think it can change overnight. If we, in the presence of the right people, say, we have this beautiful, brilliant plan to save the world from Alma. When they say, who's that? And say, let's talk about it. And then let's throw the plan out there. This is how we're going to do it. All we don't have is money. Here's how we're going. I was thinking about it today. We should get a discussion going on korahor.org on the website and in our missions and start going with this. I was thinking about this today. I'm like, holy shit, there are people in my network. There are people here in the Korahors who could probably help me out with this. I had this thought, okay? It's expensive to send a probe to outer space. I grant you, I understand that. I only bring it up because that's like the high end of what we're talking about. Other things that we can talk about, there are other things we can talk about doing. But I said, suppose we can't do that, but we still want to support our community and build the support and show the world that these atheists care and that we want to support the world in case this impact corridor actually becomes important. I'm going to pull it up if I can. I showed this in the last one, in our last episode, but it matters to me. It really does matter to me that you see this. Maybe it's because I have a special connection to South America, but I don't think so. I think it really is this, that I do this. I do overview. I do it all the time. As many of you know that I used to be a Mormon. And I served a mission in South America. And when I look at this map here, this is the impact corridor of where Alma is likely to strike on or about December 22nd, 2032, if he does. And right now, yeah, that's Joey comes up with the snark, but he also comes up with these really good points. That's exactly right, Joey. And every time I look at this image, I think of Peru, even though it doesn't cross through Peru, crosses through Colombia. But is it any surprise to you that we don't have powerful white rich men? I'm just calling it out exactly like it is, guys. I just sometimes towards the end of the broadcast, I just say things quite bluntly. Is it any wonder to you that Elon Musk hasn't sent a rocket to push this non-zero chance thing out of the way and push it down to zero chance? Is it any wonder Jeff Bezos hasn't done it? Is it any wonder that NASA can't raise the technology right now to do it? The longer we wait, the harder it's going to be. And right now, with the placement of Alma, we can't see him where he is. And we are not going to be able to see him again, NASA projects, until 2027. So that's 2 years here where we've hit this window currently, where that non-zero chance that's currently at 3% chance that Alma will hit somewhere on this red line. That 3% chance could go up to 100%. It could go down to 0%. If for the next 2 years, we're not even going to know. We're not even going to know. That's why I say, what's the harm in using this podcast where we talk about things? I can sit here and bitch all day long about Joseph Smith. I can sit here and whine and complain all day long about Josiah Trenum. I could talk all day. I could talk and talk and talk about the harm of the Catholic Church, the Orthodox Church, the Mormon Church. Talk about all these other churches all day long. Is that what our life is about? Because it's not one. I would hate it. I mean, of course I do it. I did it on Wednesday. We got to do some of it. But we can't just be against things. We got to be for something. That's what atheist spirituality taught me. And I look around and I say, why can't we be for? How can we be more for science? How can we be more for humanism? And I almost always these days, and I know maybe it's just because this is the soup I'm swimming in right now, I think of this freaking picture. And I'm telling you, if that line went over Dallas, Texas, there'd be a rocket up there right now. And it would, if that line went over London or Paris, you better believe they'd be all over Alma. 3% chance, nothing. Unacceptable, they would say. 3% chance. But look where it is. And suddenly, it's not a priority. If it happens, it happens. So I was thinking about this map. Now I'm rambling. I'm going to I do this at the end of some episodes. I said, what we could do? We could put together a team of nurses and doctors. We could put together a team of people who have volunteer experience in organizing volunteer organizations. We could put together cooks. We could put together people who have experience organizing refugee camps, and say, look, in the event that this non-zero chance that Alma hits Earth goes up to 100%, these are the sites where it's likely to hit. These are the governments, these are the institutions, these are the cities, these are the people we need to make contact with, and say, in the event, as soon as we know this is where it's likely to hit, we go out there and work with these other NGOs and deploy Korahors, atheists, godless people, to show up to support and get those and evacuate those areas so that we can get those people to safety. If we can't stop Alma from hitting Earth, we at least save the people. I thought that's it. That could be part of it. That could be part of the scale up. Part of our scale up for our space organization is we don't have the money to buy a rocket or space or payload on a rocket, but we have enough money to grow a podcast big enough where we are out here, talking to millions of atheists, agnostics, and people of conscience who are specialists who could be doing this, and who could be supporting refugees. Who they'll be like climate refugees. They're basically Alma's refugees, and we can get these people out of harm's way, do the best we can. I thought, and it just, poof, it just made me glow. I was thinking about while I was walking the other night. It's like 11 o'clock at night. I was out for a walk, and just it felt like every part of my I almost said soul, every part of my body was like glowing. I'm like, we could do that. No, we could do that. I'll get a freaking passport. I'll go out there and finish my EMT training I started in high school. We could get a whole bunch of people do it. That's something we could organize. That's something we could do and say, stage 1, we are organizing an emergency response team of godless people who are going to go out there and to where all these, brown people live, frankly. And we're going to get some people out of harm's way as soon as we know where. If it's Colombia, here we come. If it's, Egypt, here we come. If it's Qatar, here we come. Here come the Corahors. We are going to get people out of the way. We're going to keep them calm. We're going to keep them fed. We're going to keep them warm because it's going to be December. Well, I guess, depending on where. It's mainly in the tropics. But either way, we're going to keep people. We're going to do our best to serve out of love, out of compassion for people, out of love for our planet. I said, okay, so stage 1 is going to be some kind of refugee program. Yes, we would build a rocket and send a probe and take care of this if we had whose money? We're not even talking about Elon Musk money. We're talking about fucking Steve Ballmer money. It's nothing. There's nothing to them. Okay? But right now we don't have it. We don't have that. We got to grow our message. We got to grow our audience. That's going to cost money. So we'll start there. We'll start with something small that we can do and say, right now we're building this message. We're having conversations. We're going to talk to experts. We're going to have some laughs. And we're going to sit down. Maybe we have some beers. And we're going to talk about, we got 2 years to decide if this non-zero chance goes up to 100% chance that Alma's going to hit Earth. How are we going, the Corahors are going to show up and say, ha, you thought we were crazy when we were coming up with this contingency plan. And then we come up with a contingency plan and say, we godless people are going to save the world. Turns out we got to. And, back when it was a 3% chance, they laughed at us. We had a 3% chance of saving the world. But our enemy has a 3% chance of hitting us. So, it's probably fine. And so it's like, it was low stakes then, but we said then that the stakes could get higher. We don't know what the future holds. And so we're going to plan. And I said, what would stage 2 be? You look at this for a second. I tell you the next thing that scares the shit out of me is the Amazon. I served my mission in the Amazon. I've seen it. I've seen this thing. When people say that the Amazon is like the engine of our atmosphere, they are not freaking kidding, man. When you get into the Amazon, when I arrived in Iquitos, Peru, it was like, I know I have that. We're going to make that headline happen. It was like a blanket, a hot, wet blanket was thrown over my head. And for a moment, I thought, oh, this could be nice. It's like living in a sauna. And that was all of 5 seconds of I was like, oh my God, it's like living in a sauna. And it got to be oppressive. But it's like it's amazing when you go to the Amazon. You can feel the planet breathing. It's like being in the lungs of planet Earth. You can feel it. The only way to describe it is you know that this planet is alive. Okay? Now consider this place. This is a giant space rock that definitely is going to get hotter than hell entering our atmosphere. Right through South America. Look at all of those. Look at all of that vegetation. That is vegetation, isn't it? In Africa. How would we mitigate that kind of damage in an age where we couldn't even mitigate Bolsonaro's damage that he was doing to the Amazon in Brazil? This is going to take planning. This could become a full-scale crisis here. It's all and we've already got a full-scale crisis here, but it's like that movie, that Netflix movie, Don't Look Up. It's just like that. That NASA organization in Don't Look Up, the Planetary Defense Organization, I forget what it's called. That exists. That's a real thing, and it's that frustrating. They basically, their organization is drastically underfunded. It's supposed to be a partnership between, the private sector and NASA to say in the last minute, oh, it turns out there's a comet coming right at us. It turns out there's an asteroid coming right at us. Let's organize a rescue mission. And it's supposed to be, right, the movie is supposed to be about climate change. How we are living in that exact scenario, but because it's slow and it's hurting people of color more than it's hurting white people, the plan is to take rich white people and evacuate them. And that seems cynical when you think about it, right? That seems like, okay, yes, true, things are bad, but come on, is it that bad? Elon Musk is building rockets to go to Mars. Putin and Xi are trying to land a nuclear reactor on the moon so that they can. I'm accusing them here. I'm flat out accusing them. What? Sue me. I don't know. Launch rockets at me. I don't care. Just send one my way. Are trying to create a gas station on the moon so that Elon Musk has to pay them so that he can go to Mars, or so that Donald Trump has to pay them if NASA's going to send missions to Mars. And Sean Duffy's just come out and said as much. And it's like, why? While you guys are out here trying to get off this planet, there's some of us still here on this planet going, I don't want to go to Mars. I have absolutely no interest in Mars. Do you know how fucking cold it is on Mars? Do you know how dangerous it is? Do you know that there's no terraforming plan that actually works for this? It is not just ambitious, it's frankly stupid. But Elon wants to go. I say, get your ass out and on the way. And and Putin, this guy thinks wants to live forever, but he doesn't. No one does. Nobody lives forever, guys. You got this one chance to do something. Can you imagine how petty? If you spent it just trying to spare yourself of the worst fate of other people who were different from you. So I guess I mean, look, I get it. That makes me what? A beta, a cuck, what's the word? What's the red hat word? Somebody chime in with a red hat word. What am I? I'm a pinko commie. I'm a whatever. Okay, sure, yeah, socialist. I actually am a socialist. I'm a soft-hearted woke scold. Yeah, yes I am. Yes I am. Because I looked around me and one day and I said I could get money. I could get a comfortable life if I sat down and focused on other priorities in my life. I wouldn't struggle as much, and that would be very convenient and nice for me. And what would it do for my children? Okay, besides provide them maybe with a little more comfortable life. But what I would have taught them was that life was about escaping the fate that you decided some way other people deserve for that fate to befall them through absolutely no fault of their own. And that you become an alpha, you become a head chief, you become the big man, you become the big cheese because you escaped while they had to suffer. Okay? The shameful thing is that Alma is a demonstration of how that's very much the real situation we're living in. That people think that they can escape. I am going way too long, but I'm going to do this again. I got another tangent here. While I'm here and you guys are here, I'm going to bitch for a minute here. Because I am 45 years old and I spend most of my time on the internet, on YouTube, I get these ads that say, if you are a man who makes $150,000 a year, I'm not. Why are you targeting me with your advertising? I do this for a living. I'm like, do you guys not know how to target your audience? And some of you guys have seen this. Do you see these ads that say, if you're a man who's making $150,000 a year, and you're still ashamed to take your shirt off at the pool. Take my shirt off at the pool? What are you talking about, man? It's like, I will get you shredded like Brad Pitt in Fight Club. I'm like, why am I seeing this ad? Who do you rich people think I fucking am? No, I don't want to give you any money if I had any. If I had billions of dollars, I would not give you any of this money to get me shredded like Brad Pitt in fucking Fight Club. No, give me a rocket. Give me a space probe and try to save the world here. And it's just remarkable to me that this is where our attention is. This is where our focus is. I'm in Tangent City here right now. Remember, have you listened to Sam Harris's "It Is Always Now"? If there's an overview moment, that is it. This is that speech, between that speech, which was a eulogy and kind of an ad for his book, Waking Up. It was a eulogy for Hitch, for Christopher Hitchens at the Atheist Conference in Melbourne. And I think about that, it blows my mind. This is perhaps one of the most spiritual experiences I've had in my life is listening to Sam freaking Harris talking about this, talking about death, and talking about, Buddhist dualism, and talking about being separate from your perceptions and your senses, and how he talks about when people get to the moment of death, when you are spending the last minutes of your life, potentially, where you or somebody that close to you is in that moment, and there are people. I'm going to be sensitive because I know there are people listening right now, in the future, who are in this situation, where suddenly you are thrown into the surreal experience of not dying or caring for somebody who is. That in those moments, universally, people say, the thing that you think about is not how much time you spent compulsively checking email or having another argument with your spouse or watching a stupid movie for the fourth time. I'm using actual things he says because I've listened to this a lot. And he says they regret what they cared about. To live your life in fear of what you'll feel when you are dying is kind of stupid, but it's a lesson. It's a pondering. Will we spend our lives in such a way that the answer to the question, what was I thinking about? What was I spending my time doing? Is going to be, I was chasing after money, or I was chasing after having things that my neighbor didn't have, They're getting the newer one. What if we could just live our life as if we could just drop that and say, it's a corporation that decided I had to have that. This is not my problem. I love that, Joey. That I couldn't say it better. I was on a podcast recording that's going to come out here in a couple of weeks. I don't know how well I did at it. I was a guest. Very generously, I was offered a position, a spot on a good show, an ex-Mormon show called A Non-Mormon and Ex-Mormon Walk Into a Bar. And a Never Mormon and Ex-Mormon Walk Into a Bar, it's called. Two Nomos. And these two ladies I was talking to, one of them who's never been Mormon, one of them who's an ex-Mormon. And I was talking about my mission and how my mission, I got so depressed, I didn't know if I could carry on. And how my life, my discovery of spirituality in my life has been leaning into it. And saying, you were never going to live forever, dude. The church wanted you to believe that you could live forever because then you would give them your money while you're here. You got to buy your way into eternity. But at the end of the day, when you see through the bullshit, then all of a sudden you start to realize, I've been wasting my life. And I said, and one of these, Erica, who is a friend, I hope will continue to be my friend. She's like, that thought of just ending terrifies me. And I said, really? And she's like, yeah, just like that you would suddenly stop existing. She's like, if anything, the reason to believe in God would be because you could just stop. And I said, see, that's so interesting to me because like, that's the greatest appeal to me. And I was sitting there with Kate, who's the other host, who said, I have to admit, that's me too. She's like, the idea that I could just cease to exist is like the biggest relief for me. And she's like, what happened to you Mormons? I'm like, we went through some dark shit, man. But I don't know how much of that is Mormonism. Frankly, I think more of it is autism. But I also think that, the more I bring people up and say, the more I bring this up with people these days, is the more I realize, is the more acutely aware I am that suffering is so normal on this planet. And every society I have come in contact with so far, and it's not that many, but some, has this moral rule that you don't talk about suffering because it brings other people down. But really what we're talking about there is we're trying to gatekeep our pain and keep from feeling it where other people will feel it, keep it from spilling over onto each other, because we become hardened to it. And we have these nervous systems that are quite different from one another. And some people can handle it and some people can't handle it. And everybody has a limit. But so what we do is we shut down. Have you heard them talk about the loneliness epidemic? Such bullshit. We don't have a loneliness epidemic. We have a feeling crisis. We have an emotional intelligence crisis. And men are at the center of it. Can that be said enough? We've given up on feeling. We have a society that's trying harder and harder not to feel because, yes, part of it is Instagram, part of it is Facebook, part of it is Twitter for certain, part of it is YouTube, part of it is how obsessed we are with swimming in this world of media trying to chase more dopamine fixes. But at the same time, part of it is by just saying, well, let's just shame ourselves for the habits that we have. Is that solving it? By sitting here going, oh, here we are in our privilege. We all, live in a country and in a time when there's so much convenience every one of our ancestors would shame us for all the wonderful things that we have and don't appreciate all the time. So learn to be grateful and count your blessings, blah, blah, blah. Okay, sure. Is that helping? Is that working for you? If it is, great. You're having a very different experience than I'm having. That's not helping me. That's not getting me there. Shutting down how I feel, shutting my feelings down, made me feel more and more just like I didn't want to be here. Like, this planet's not good to me. This planet's not for me. Everybody else is having a good time, and I'm not. I'm the only one. And it becomes, you can become so altruistic, looking at the world and saying, for your benefit, I'm just going to take me out of this, that you become almost selfish and thinking and convinced by this false morality that says we don't talk about how much pain we are in. That's immoral. It's wrong. When we could, what if we were to expand our ability to feel? Don't shut it down. Grow it. That's not an education we're getting. That's not an education we're getting at church. Not those churches. I think the Buddhists do it. I think that the Catholics, maybe some Catholics do it. I don't know. But I tell you this, I've never seen it. I can tell you for damn sure the Mormons don't do it. I'll tell you that for damn sure. And so I look at it and say, look, we could do something progressive. Not politically progressive. We could do something for the benefit of ourselves, or of our families, and of humankind here. And it sounds, as soon as I say it, as soon as I hear the words coming out of my mouth, and I guarantee you I'll be thinking about it all night tonight, what I just said. I'm going to be like, somebody is out there just like laughing at me. Somebody out there is going to be going, look at this guy with his stupid paintings and his stupid face and his stupid beard. Listen to this guy who's the stupid church and his stupid podcast talking about stupid rockets and because we're so surrounded by negativity all the time and so overwhelmed, and say, this guy has hope of doing something good in the world. Fuck that. And I'll think, God, do I look like an idiot out here? And yes, but let me tell you the reason why I don't care. In that moment, I think to myself, go over the names, go over the faces of all the people you've seen cry. I'm going to be vulnerable with you here. I'm going to be vulnerable with you on behalf of other people. That I started before the Church of Korihor began. I started to challenge myself to go out and talk to people. And when I say, how are you doing? And they say, I'm fine, in that tone that tells you it's not true. Because we're required to say I'm fine. To take a few of them and ask myself, can I take a moment now and just feel with a human being? Just feel, just be in it. And ask somebody, is that true? Are you fine? Or is that just what you have to say? People I barely know sometimes who just open up and start to cry, or who laugh like they've never laughed before. Like this laugh. I was ready. I feel like I was ready for the crying. The laughing was the thing I wasn't ready for. People who laughed like that laugh was sitting on their lungs. Wanting like this stress was pressing them down. And this laugh let a bubble just kind of burst out of them. Just like, oh my God. No, I'm not okay. No, I'm not doing well. And people, and talking to people, it's like, what, and people who ask me, what are your challenges? I say, well, I have, this or that. Let me not go back into it. You guys who've been with me for a while know this about my challenges. And the people say, I can't even imagine what that must be like for you. And I was like, I'm so sorry for what you're going through. And I'm like, okay, thank you. I guess I'm healing through it. I'm getting through it. But I'll tell you a little bit about one of these conversations I had with a woman who'd had like 5 miscarriages. I'm like, you feel badly for me? I lived through one of my wife's miscarriages. My wife and I had one miscarriage that we know of, a significant one. It was almost second trimester. The second trimester. And we lived through one miscarriage. And it damn near broke us. It at one point damn near broke our marriage. And the stress and the pressure on it, I watched as it really broke my Molly down. I'd never seen her in so much pain. One miscarriage. And then when I tell women about this, oh, my wife had a miscarriage and she broke down, nearly broke her down. And I see that look that says, I don't want to diminish your wife's pain, but I used to go through 2 or 3 miscarriages a year. Some women have told me. And getting your hope up and saying, this time it's different. And for somebody who has experienced something like that, or somebody who's married to somebody who's dying of cancer, or has seen a parent through terminal illness, or a child, to look to me and say, oh, I'm so sorry about your son's problems with, his ABA therapy. Fuck that. That's not important here. You were saying something about what you've been through. And I come to realize that we have this rule that says, don't be honest about the pain you're going through, because we're trying to contain a contagion of hurt, because we have no institution, that's the word I'm looking for how to grow our capacity to feel. Or if we do, it's the arts and humanities. And to think that we see those as a privilege of the rich. It's a privilege of the rich to have humanities. It's a privilege of the rich to enjoy a night at the opera, that it's a luxury to enjoy a play. It's a luxury to go and to a museum. When all we would have to do to shift our values a little bit is to say, we should have some public museums. We've done it. There are public museums. There are public observatories. There are, and planetariums, I should say. There are public libraries. These things, we do it sometimes. And all it takes is a little bit of looking around and saying, this one's not for me alone. The thing that's for me is to do something for other people while I have a chance. Not because I'm afraid of what will happen when I'm about to die and looking back on my life and say, what was I doing? I can hear Sam Harris. I can hear his voice. What was I doing? There better be a heaven if we're going to waste our time like that. That's what he said. Haunts me. Watching a bad movie for the 4th time. There better be a heaven if we waste our time like that. I thought, shit, man. Christopher Hitchens' death has just educated me on how much of my life I am wasting and don't want to. I want to do something. It's not just that I feel guilty. It's that I want to do something. I want to try. And my failures have taught me, and I'm so grateful for Alain de Botton, who taught me. I got his book right here. Religion for Atheists. I heard that title and I went, fuck that. Can you think of anything I remember saying about this book and this man and his work? Can you think of any stupider thing? And now look where I am. I took a course from his School of Life on how to fail. I thought that's the funniest thing in the world. I could teach a course on that. My life is full of failure. And then I actually read the description of it and said, I'm doing this course. And it was during the Big P. It was during the COVID pandemic. And I attended this Zoom meeting with strangers from all over the world and bonded with these people in my pain as people I barely knew. I just barely met. Said to me, it seems to me like you tried a thing, filmmaking, making it in Hollywood, that most people fail at, and you're really beating yourself up for failing at a thing that most people fail at. And somebody said to me, you tell me people you work with think that your work is good. I said, sure. Most people who work with me in video production think that my work is good, but Hollywood will never notice. And they're like, have you ever heard of somebody who is good at something who Hollywood would benefit from their talent and just doesn't know talent when they see it? And I was like, shit, are you kidding me? You just summed up Hollywood in one phrase. That's what it is. And I said, why can't you accept that that's you? I said, because it's not going to get me to success. And I'm like, and they said, maybe that is your success. Maybe your success is giving up on Hollywood and finding something else. Maybe this dream wasn't your dream. Maybe this dream locked you away from your dream. And the only way to get to a dream that made you fulfilled and passionate in life was to fail. That's what it is. It's not that I tried and failed. It's that I cared and failed and discovered that I was caring about the wrong thing. It was Hitch all over again. It was Sam Harris, and it is always now all over again. I went, holy shit, we do need religion for atheists, but not religion. Let's call it something else. So I tried to come up with something else and realized if we call it something else, the government will recognize it. And then we won't get the tax breaks for it, which means we won't get the funding for it. So we'll call it religion. And I said, but don't call it a church. Ugh, church is boring. Church is nasty. Church is ugly. Again, how will the government? Again, then I watched and saw how the Humanist Association, which is a church technically, has to fight tooth and nail with state governments who won't recognize them officially as a church. And I went, no, we have to call it a church because otherwise they'll fight with us. And so I said, okay, so we have to start a church for atheists and we have to call it a church. I hate it. Let's do it. But I said, but we're going to call it the Church of Korihor. I remember the time when I said that, I'm like, and we're going to make the Mormon church Alma because Alma is the bad guy in the story of the Church of Korihor and Alma. And then I actually got into it and realized, actually, I don't think that the Mormon church is the Alma. You know, I'm grateful for Divas Lazarus, but now I'm really getting into it. Divas Lazarus asked me to watch one session of General Conference. I hadn't done it in like over 2 decades. And I watched one episode of General Conference so that I could review it for Mormon News Roundup, which probably will never have me on his program again. Maybe that's for the best. But I watched one session of conference, a Mormon conference. And can I tell you that in this session of conference, where the Mormons all gathered together to listen to their prophets and apostles, every single sermon they heard was about how depressed the Mormons are. Every sermon was about how we feel. They felt lonely, how they felt depressed, how they felt like their life was meaningless, and how to support their family members who felt like their life was meaningless. Isn't their religion supposed to solve that? I was a Mormon for 21 years of my life. All that time, I thought they all have an answer, and I don't have it. That the more I adopt the story of Joseph Smith, or the story of Jesus Christ, or the story of Heavenly Father, I will get this strange, elusive thing that will make all the meaninglessness go away, give me purpose. And there were times when I could swear it was true, that it was working, and then it would dissipate, and I was depressed. And I thought, do these Mormons know about antidepressants? Do you know about Adderall? Do you know about some of the cutting edge science on how neurodivergence shows us that our brain chemistry turns out not to be so cut and dry? And maybe you need to try some things. Maybe you need to get on something else. And yes, the drugs aren't going to solve it. Oh no, they are not going to solve it all by themselves. You're going to have to do therapy. You're going to have to meditate. You're going to have more spiritual experiences. Doesn't the church provide them with this? Isn't this part of what they're doing? And I realized, I looked at them, and they talked about, you have to go to temple. You have to go to the temple. Do your work for the dead. You have to make sure that you're constantly paying your tithing. Make sure every day that you guard your thoughts. And I'm looking at this, and I'm like, I used to hate these people. I used to be so angry at them for selling me this line of bullshit that wasn't true. And now I live among these people. I didn't grow up here in Utah. I grew up in Mesa, which is basically Utah. But now living here, I realized these people have so much. I drive surrounded by them every day in their Escalades and their Cybertrucks. My God, here in Utah County, like Cybertrucks everywhere right now. I'm like, are they all depressed? It's just that, again, the sudden realization that we have these societies built on not telling each other. I have a Cybertruck, but it doesn't fill the gap in me. I have God, and doesn't fill the hole in me. I have the church. I have this. I have that. I have the trophy wife. I have the 2.3 children. I have the dream job. I got the good haircut. I got the nice clothes. I got the watch that's worth more than my car. I got it. And guess what? I don't know what any of it's for. I tried telling myself that it's about Heavenly Father testing me, and it's not working. I thought Jesus will save me, and it's not working. And I think, my God, but at 21 years old, I discovered this and got out as a missionary in the Amazon. And got out and said, I am out of here. Now there are these people 40, 50, 60 years old and older, still trying to make it work and unable to tell somebody else, I am miserable all the time. And they want to. And these brethren get up at their pulpit, that rammy-umptum, and say, why are we all depressed? Stop going on social media. Don't read about Joseph Smith. Don't read about Helen Mark Kimball. It'll just make you depressed. And I'm like, my God, I can't even imagine having to chase that all the time. I played my favorite game. I asked Divas actually about this, and he said no. I think I asked Kolch about this, and he said no. Okay, I'm the only one who does this. I play the game, What If I Were the Prophet? If I were the Mormon prophet today, I tell you the first thing I would do is to get up there and say, Joseph Smith had problems. He had problems, you guys. You have problems. I have problems. Joseph Smith had problems, and part of it was a weakness for underage girls. And I can't reconcile it, but I will not defend it. God's at the helm of the work, I would have to say. The Spirit will guide, whatever. And then that's the point where that fantasy ends for me. I'm like, well, I would never sell anybody on all that. But I think, why don't they just come out and say it? Why don't they just come clean? You can tell. I feel like I can tell just listening to them. They want to. Okay, Jeffrey R. Holland doesn't want to. But the rest of them want to come clean. I feel quite certain that Russell M. Nelson wants to come clean on that. We know it's not true. It's the first thing that Mormons say when they leave. Ex-Mormons, it's the first question that comes up on the Facebook groups and on the podcasts and on all of our multimedia, our social media. The first question that comes up, do you think the brethren know? Yes, they know. Jeffrey R. Holland doesn't. Jeffrey R. Holland's broken. The rest of them know. And Russell and Ballard maybe was trying to convince himself it wasn't. And definitely Boyd K. Packer knew and was trying to convince himself that he didn't know. But the rest, but they know. They're fighting against the knowledge. That's what faith is. The assurance of what's not seen. Yeah, they want a world that doesn't exist. It's possible to just be in the world that exists. In this world that exists, there's a giant rock coming after us. And we will, if I try to go and shoot this thing down, 97 times out of 100, I'm going to fail probably. But guess what? There's only a 3% chance that it's going to happen at this point. So those odds are about right. And overnight, we could grow this conversation to enough people that we could decide, you know what, let's talk about this technology. We could actually do it. We could actually mitigate the damage. We could actually stop it. We could actually do something about it. And we got a couple of years. Let's try. And if we failed at that, awesome. Because we could have failed at chasing after money off of like profits. Any kind of profits. We could have failed at that. What a joke. What a ridiculous joke. I don't want to spend my life like that. Yes, I'd love to have some money to have a comfortable life. I'm sure you would too. Here, I'll put up my Cash App. I committed to start doing this. Now that we have the ability I have the ability through our system to send tax receipts if people send me personal donations. I'm trying to be a good example to our luminaries and say, just put your Cash App up there, put your Venmo up there, let people donate to you, and just tell them, if you want to donate to me, you can send me $1, you can send me $5, you can send me whatever you want, whatever you can afford, and then I will send in. Make sure you put in the notes. I'm not even sure if that works in Cash App. It's been so long since I used it. I'm not even sure that it works. Actually, I am sure that it works. And just put in the notes your name and your address so I can send you a tax receipt. And now we have a form where the Church of Korihor will send you a tax receipt if you donate art or if you donate money or whatever. And I'm like sitting here like, are we going to get rich off of that? Or is this Joel Osteen kind of thing going to happen here for me? Probably not. I mean, if it did, I guess I wouldn't complain. But to be honest with you, if I got Joel Osteen money tomorrow, if I got an international bestseller, I'd probably keep like enough money to live comfortably. But it's not billions of dollars. It's not millions of dollars. It's not hundreds of millions of dollars. Hell no. I could live comfortably on $200,000 a year and be tickled pink that any money I got after that, I would probably just give to the Church of Korihor and just say, this is my mission. This is what I'm doing. What's my luxury? What's my private jet? What's my 30-foot yacht? How big are yachts? I'll tell you my 30-foot yacht. I want a rocket. I want a fucking rocket. Or I want a payload space on a rocket. That's what I want. That's my yacht. That's my, that's my mega church. You know what my mega church is? Do you know that New York City today, I am in 3 hours now. I should stop. Do you know in New York City, it was unveiled today that using public funds, they just launched a homeless shelter for trans people. And let me tell you something. I never been more jealous in my life. I went, damn it. That's awesome. I worry every day about how many trans people don't have some place to be safe tonight. I think about it every day. I'm sure there are people who just who feel grossed out by the very existence of trans people who wouldn't if it weren't for the fact that they just can't allow themselves to feel what it must be like and ponder that. It's so far outside of your experience, and I've got so much pain. I've shut down all my feelings so much that I can't feel it. And I'm sitting here basking in the feeling of jealousy. And I posted on Facebook. I said, we should be doing this. I've been saying since the beginning. We're coming up on a year this December that the Church of Korihor exists. I said, I've been saying from the day I started this church, I said, we are going to have luminaries, volunteers who are trained, who are criminal background checked, but who are passionate, who are trans, and who who are allies, and who every day of their life, not because they're going to get rich, are going to sit there with a hotline just for trans people to have access to housing. And we'll put a cell phone in somebody's hand and we'll get donations that will pay for it. We'll take shifts. We'll figure out the hardware and software. That's easy. That's going to be the easy part. That we will figure out. The hard part is get the people who not only care, but have the heart and the capacity on a regular basis to take a shift, even if it's just 4 hours a week, 8 hours a week, even if it's just a few hours a day. Maybe it's 8 hours a day. At some point, it's too much. But I put out there, I said, what if you had one executive director, one professional fundraiser, somebody who's raised funds for a big organization, and one person who has experience organizing volunteers? 3 people who have experience in this or who are willing to learn. And you put them together into a mission and say, your mission is all the people in the greater Cincinnati area who are trans have a roof over their head every night. How would you go out and do it? And when people see that exists, they'll say, do you know there are atheists organizing to make sure that in this area, no trans person has to sleep on the street? And that's all they do. Well, they have their life, but maybe they don't. Maybe they make it their career. And the first thought I have is, where's the money going to come from? Those people have to pay bills, most of them. We can't just have rich people doing it. I thought, I didn't think of that before we got going. But that's going to be like the most important, that could be like the most important part. What does the pipeline look like? I just started this church. I'm already failing at something. Yippee. That means we're learning something. We're going to figure this out. And so I talked about it with my luminaries. with the people I ordained into this church. Yes, we have people I've ordained into this church, and I need more. And I said, and every one of them said, I just don't know what to do when somebody gives me cash. How do I document that? I said, give them a tax receipt. Okay, how do we coordinate that? And so I just said, okay, look, I created this form on the website. Only the ordained clergy of the Church of Korihor can get to it. And this is how you use it. You put in the information, and boom, 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 and the Church of Korihor sends them a tax receipt automatically. And now all of a sudden, we're using it. And I'm like, the technology part is easy. We can figure that out. Okay, if I'm doing all of it, this is another part of the problem. Sorry, I was in the other thing. This is another part of the issue. I'm like, what happens when somebody says, look, I don't want to be ordained to anything. I don't want to join your church. But if you're having tech problems, like you need an app that helps you to organize how you're going to feed seniors all across this country. I don't know how many of you are here for one of my sermons where I mentioned that we want to launch. A couple of weeks ago, I feel like I repeat myself a lot, but it bears repeating. I talked about the fact that I got into the Centers for Disease Control's database, their Wonder database, to track a claim I heard, which was that in 2018, more people in America died of hunger than any year on record. Bullshit, I said. And since I started telling people that, they start saying it. Bullshit. I went and I looked it up. It's true. Not only was it true, 2019, we beat that record. 2020, we beat that record. 2021, we beat that record. It doesn't get said enough. I have to repeat it all the time. I don't resent it. I'm going to say it again. Did you know that since 2018, every year we kill more people in this country with hunger than any year on record, and disproportionately they're seniors and Black and Indigenous people of color? Bullshit. I hear it every day. Bullshit, people say. Look it up. I did the research. I have the numbers. I have the data. I can show it to you. More people in this country are dying of hunger than ever before. And it's right under our noses. While people sit here and coast along trying to Instagram feed or trying to snort or trying to porn consume enough dopamine or pray. Do you know all these people out there who like to shame people for looking at porn and jacking off? When you take proven fact, when you take a string of rosary beads and start praying your rosary, it's the exact same thing. They try to convince you that it's the same thing as doing drugs. Yeah, it's similar in dopaminergic response, but you know what it's more closely similar to? Hugging somebody. The release of oxytocin in your brain becomes serotonin. Boost dopamine. Dopaminergic response. That's why people who quit drugs end up oftentimes becoming people who go running. You ever heard of a runner's high? It's the same thing. Here we are chasing dopamine after dopamine after dopamine after dopamine, trying to get some kind of response that numbs our ability to feel for a moment, and then that moment passes because nobody's dopamine just, if you have dopamine just streaming in your brain 100% of the time, your brain will break down. Same thing with serotonin. You think this sounds like we worship this at the temple of serotonin in our society, okay? Because it's so good, and we want it so badly. We need it so badly. And if you have enough serotonin, you will get you won't get depressed, supposedly, okay? But did you know that you can get so much serotonin in your brain that it causes your whole body to hurt and your joints to lock up? Serotonin can be the worst thing that ever happened to you if you have serotonin. I want to say poisoning. It's not serotonin poisoning. It's like serotonin. There's a technical term for it. We chase it. If we ever caught up with it, we would hate it. Dopamine the same. Adrenaline the same. And it's possible to be like Rusty Schweikert standing on the porch of the Lem, and you know what happened? He looked down at Earth or up. He didn't know which way was down or up. Earth sitting in front of him. Whoops, that's part of it. I'll figure it out. There it is. Looking down at Earth, suddenly realized life was supposed to be about more than this. At a time when people would try to convince him, but what if the Russians beat us to the moon? Who cares? Then that's what happens to us. What if we never learn how to feel? Imagine if they had known when the wall came down and the Soviet Union collapsed. They had a cultural exchange between the United States and the Soviet Union and Russia. And where we exchanged, you look at the stuff, we'll look at the stuff you guys used to make about us in your arts and your materials about us. And we'll show you the things that we made about you. Can you imagine all those people in the Soviet Union watching freaking Red Dawn for the first time? Watching Rocky V for the first time? Watching The Hunt for Red October? And looking at us and going, that's what you thought we were going to do? Yeah. You guys know your government was after us, right? We had this whole Cold War. You guys were all you guys wanted to eliminate us because we were Americans. They're like, you wanted to eliminate us because we weren't capitalists. What? I didn't care. It wasn't about you at all. It was about your government. It was about the spread of communism. It's about the Vietnamese. It was about the Koreans. Those people were terrified of you now. You Americans, you're the bad guy. How do you not know? It's just can you imagine how it would have changed things if during the space race we could have looked to each other and said, okay, we disagree on some pretty minor things here, but let's go to the moon because we could use it to make a better world. We could unify a vision to make a better world. But it's just like Neil Tyson was saying, we've never managed to figure out as human beings how to motivate governments to pay for something by saying it'd be good for everybody. And how stupid is that? What is this for? What are we alive on this planet for? If we can't convince somebody, let's do it because it's the right thing to do. Let's do it because people are suffering. And the solution instead is, you worry about yours, not my circus, not my monkeys. Are you serious? It is our circus. These are our monkeys. These are our apes. We only have each other for this brief period of time. And if we show our children and these future generations that we never learned how to care, how do we expect them to suddenly start? If we don't have an institution like the Church of Korihor to say, let's get together and find reasons to give a shit, who's going to do it? It was supposed to be Jesus's followers at one point, supposedly. You know, Jesus's followers, we talked about this on Wednesday. It was Jesus's followers who went to Uganda and convinced them to pass laws to start killing gay people and punishing their family members for not turning them in for being gay. And oh, by the way, Josiah Trentham spoke at their conference. And by the way, the Mormons do it every time they have one of their conferences. It's this same organization has been listed by the Southern Poverty Law Center as a hate group. And some of the most prominent religious leaders in the world have been participating in it since 1998, 1997. And some of the not so prominent ones get a pulpit. You don't even have to be a prominent leader of a big fancy church. You just have to hate strong enough. Hate became their religion. The man who supposedly told them, the followers of the man who supposedly told them, there are only two commandments: love God and love your neighbor as yourself. And they're organizing whole organizations of hate, where their revivals are about hate. Hate for the LGBTQIA plus community that's so strong that they get laws passed in countries that didn't have them before, but are trying to please their God. And how much purpose will it give them? One of the most powerful, if not the most powerful church in the world, bought a freaking garbanzo bean farm in Australia to circumvent tariffs because they own more farmland in America than any country than any other entity in existence. Don't believe me? Google it. It's easy. It's easy to find. And for $300 million, bought a farm in Australia, which the country that decided not to retaliate against Trump's tariffs and say, fine, you raise tariffs on us, eh, mate? That's fine. We keep our tariffs just the same. What we'll do is spend our taxpayers' money. I won't insult you guys anymore by impersonating you. Is spend our taxpayers' money to invest in an infrastructure to sell local Australian produce and Australian products to other countries at better deals, and so we can turn around and sell Australian products to the rest of the world but America. And as a person who is definitely probably going to get hurt by that, I look at that and say, damn, good for them. Look at that. Do you see that? Smart. These apes are smart. We can put our brain to it and say, you know what? I'm not going to play your game. With a little simple policy change, we can do what's in the best interest of our people, and without going out to hurt you, can nonetheless take our business elsewhere. And it doesn't have, there's no war, no bombs, no missiles, no guns, no graves. We'll just take our business elsewhere. Oh shit. And as an American, I looked at that and said, God damn, that's what happens to us. That's what happens to us. And I looked at that, and then that's at that same time when all this trade war, which is now the tariffs are taking effect. I remember when that was forming up, and I remember somebody reading this article that said the Mormon Church just spent $500 million, $600 million buying Australian farmland. And it went through over all these different farms that they had bought in Australia to circumvent the tariffs. They didn't say that, but I mean, obviously, because they know that all this produce that America is shipping overseas is suddenly going to get caught up in the tariff war, in the trade war. So they started buying farmland in a country that has healthier trade policies. Why? Because they're smart, man. These Mormons didn't get to be the richest church in the world by being a bunch of dummies. They figured it out. And it's a great con. It's a great scam. But at the same time, I look at this and I'm like, for the price of that farm, do the Mormons know that for the price of that farm, they could have shot Alma down? Of course, we won't call it Alma if they get involved. We'll call it, they're not going to get involved. It doesn't matter. They'll call it 2024 YR4. That they can go and save us from the non-zero chance that this asteroid could hit us, the wave of a pen, write a check, and it's done. And somebody else goes out and does the work. Somebody else goes out and launches it. Somebody else takes the blame if it doesn't work. And who's going to organize it? They could have done it all. No. Garbanzo beans in Australia. Fuck, man. What? When is it enough? I just told you all about how right now we've got a probe going to an asteroid here in our solar system that could have more gold and platinum on it to find out by 2029 if it's got more gold and platinum than the entire planet Earth. Just to find out. NASA says they just want to know what the inside of a planet looks like, just to confirm. But you know for a fact that there are people out here saying that there are billionaires who find that out and say, go get that gold and bring it back. And when somebody says, it's way too far away, dude, there's so much infrastructure you would have to build to make that possible. First of all, don't go for that rock. Go for one that's closer. There are closer rocks we could go after and get materials out of them. We could go and find them, but it would take so much money. It would take so much money to build the infrastructure. How much? That should be the next question. How much money would it take? Because you might be surprised. $3 billion, do it. They're talking about building a reactor on the moon for $3 billion. Will it cost that much? I almost guarantee you no. It'll be probably more like $6 billion. That's chump change. That's nothing to them. $6 billion? Do you know how little money $6 billion is to Elon Musk? Let alone the fucking United States federal government? Nothing. It's all the things that add up into our budget. And it's like, this is about saving human beings. Is that not part of the mission? Is that not part of what this is for? And it's embarrassing to have to say it, but sure, it's like, I'm going to end with this because I've gone on way too long. I'm sorry, guys. Hopefully, you guys, somebody out there now or in the future is just going to go, wow, cool. I'm just going to turn this guy in the background while I cook or something. Do you remember a few years ago? What's the guy's name? Snowden. Edward Snowden was in Russia. I think he still is. And John Oliver went over there. They did an episode for Last Week Tonight. And he said, and he showed Edward Snowden footage from Times Square. And they went out in Times Square and started interviewing Americans or people, mainly Americans, I'm sure, in Times Square, and asked them, who is Edward Snowden? And how many people who they would, just random people, they would ask them, who is Edward Snowden? And they said, oh, that's the guy who owns WikiLeaks. And he goes, what? And they're like, oh, yeah, that's the guy that owns WikiLeaks. He started WikiLeaks. Oh, really? What do you think about him? I think that he endangers national security. And they would tell him, so actually, this is who Edward Snowden actually is. He basically exposed that the government is spying on all of us all the time, and you have no privacy. And they're like, well, and these people, and what do you think about that? And people would say, well, you have to have national security, man. It's so important, national security. You got to secure the nation definitely has to get securified. We must securify the nation. National security, man. And it's like, do you care that they're looking at your shit? I ain't got nothing to hide. There's no problem. And then and Edward Snowden watching this, and what you got to watch this episode, you guys, if you've got Max or whatever, and just to see him just like deflate, like he tries to laugh it off, but he like in a moment, this is Edward Snowden's worst nightmare, right? Like all for this comedy news program this man started to collapse. Okay. As he watched, and he's like, they don't even know. Like, this upended my whole life. I'm on the lam for the rest of my life. I'm public enemy number one in my home country because of this. And these people don't even know who I am and what I did. And then he showed them, and he's like, how do you make them care? And he's like, I thought I don't know. And so, and then John Oliver, what he did. Absolutely, Joey. And then what he did is he took out a manila folder and handed Edward Snowden this manila folder with a picture, with a printout of picture in it. He's like, look at that. Just look at that. And Edward Snowden opens it up. And he says, that is a picture of my dick. And Edward Snowden is like, okay, wow. And he's like, I printed that from my phone to my printer. He's like, does the government have that picture of my dick? And he said, absolutely. How? What programs that you exposed, he asked Edward Snowden, which of the programs that you exposed are involved in how the government has that picture of my dick? Oh, it goes from this to this. When it crosses from the email servers, they actually go overseas. And technically, if it goes overseas, then this program stashes it. And he explains to him how it is that because he took a picture of his penis with his phone and printed it on his printer and emailed it to himself so he could print it to his printer, how it is that the government now has the picture of his dick. And he says, I want you to watch as I explain that, he says, as my team explained that to these same people who didn't know who you are and thought that you should be hunted down and arrested and maybe spend the rest of your life in prison for endangering the national security and desecurifying the nation. Watch their reaction. Do you ever, as they ask these same people, have you ever sent somebody a dick pic? Had somebody send you a dick pic? Oh, that's private. That's personal. Really? Do you know the government has it? Wait, has what? If you have ever sent a dick pic by text message, the government has it. No, that's private between. Are you kidding me? No, the government has it. Have you ever sent a dick pic by email? I don't know, maybe. The government has it. No, they can't get into your email. Are you kidding me? And all of a sudden, these people were ready. It was like the Boston Massacre. These people were all up in arms. They can't just take our dick pics. That's mine. Are you kidding, man? Wake up. You're living here. You're living in this, man. This guy upended his whole life so that we would know, yeah, they're doing that. Not that he's some kind of hero. Edward Snowden is no hero. But I think about that all the time. Because it's an interesting thing how this game is played. You have the fact that it's important isn't important, and that's so weird. The fact that it's important isn't important. That's so weird. We just can't be made to care. You have to put it in a context where suddenly it matters to people. It's not just discovering what matters. I can rattle off to you a list of things that matter right now that you're not thinking about. that are happening all the time. Do you know? Here's a boring Saturday afternoon for you, turned topsy-turvy. Joaquin Phoenix. Do you remember? You know Joaquin Phoenix, right? Bad guy in Gladiator and a bunch of other stuff. Hilarious in the tinfoil hat from the movie Signs. Remember when he was in Signs and he and the kids put on tinfoil hats so that the aliens can't read their thoughts? Adorable. Walk the line guy. Joaquin Phoenix, you know the one. Joaquin Phoenix had an opportunity to meet a cow that was rescued from a slaughterhouse. And they asked him if they could film it. And he bought, basically he paid for the hamburgers that cow would have been, so that instead of sending it to a slaughterhouse, it could go to a farm where people go and hug the cows. Have you seen this? You might not be ready. Google it. Ranches to hug cows. And they have like whole ranches. Oh, no, in his case, it was a mother and her calf. And that the calf couldn't function after it was separated from its mother. So, yeah, that's right. That's what it was. He had bought the calf and the mother, I think, and reunited them on a farm. And that he watched as this mother, as this heifer, proper heifer, and this calf saw each other for the first time in ages and knew instantly. And just broke this guy. It broke him. This is one of the most famous people in the world. Broke his ass. He couldn't look away from that. It's strange what we care about. It's strange how we have to put it in a context that people will get. This moon reactor, it's a bad idea. It's not the worst idea. There are so many better things we could be doing with the same infrastructure and technology that they're about to throw all this money into this reactor for spite. I can't stress this enough. Is it that we're going to miss out on money? We make plenty of money. Fuck off. Is it that we're going to miss out on the money? No. Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, they can have the money. It's not about that. It's about spite. How shallow are we? It's not even about the money. If it were about the money, guys, take that money and turn it towards asteroid mining. We can make a killing. You can make so much money. Here, let me tell you my price tag. I'll help you out. I'll get people motivated to go out and do it. And we'll make you tons of money. Here's my price tag. You ready? Get out your pen. Here's the offer. Big fat $0. I don't want a penny for it. I just want a rocket and a chance to send a probe up there. You give me the rocket. You give me the payload space. Write me an offer, Jeff Bezos, with enough payload space for one probe, one space probe. Donate it to the Church of Korihor. I will give you a tax receipt in that amount. You can write off on your taxes. You can. There's nothing. They can't stop us. They can't stop us. If they stopped us, they'd have to stop Joel Osteen. They're not going to do that. They'd have to stop the Mormon Church. They're definitely not going to do that from doing the same thing. I'm just looking and saying, fuck garbanzo bean farms in Australia. Actually, I'm sure they're lovely. I want to save the world. What, from a rocket that's got a 3% chance? Yeah, it's non-zero, dude. Let's do it. Let's go for it. Why? Are we afraid to fail? I'm not. I'll tell you this right now. I long ago surrendered to the fact that I'd probably fail at most, if not everything I do for the rest of my life. If I'm going to fail, I want to fail at this. And now, give you a 3.5-hour sermon. Donnie, I'm not sorry that Donald Trump, I'm not sorry about the letter I sent you on Wednesday about Ghislaine Maxwell. I meant every word of it. I really did. I'm going to be publishing a video later with just the clips from my having read that letter, that open letter. I'm exposing it to the world. I really do. Full chest, buddy. I meant every word of it. That being said, you've got money. You want more money. Let me help you get rich. Let me help you get filthy rich. Donald Trump, are you hearing me? I don't like you. I'm just blunt. I'm just going to be blunt here because apparently there's no law governing any of this. I don't like you. I don't tell people to vote against you. But I'm allowed to say what I feel about you and about your morals or lack thereof. Okay, but let's agree on something that I know, you know, that if I could make you money, you wouldn't give a shit if I thought you were the worst person alive. If I can make you the richest man in history, you wouldn't care if I hated your guts. You wouldn't care if I cursed the day you were born. If I could make you rich. I'm offering here. Let's go get rich. And how much I want for it is an offer you're not going to get from any of your friends, Donnie boy. I don't want a penny. I just want payload space on a rocket. Me and my crew, we'll build the probe. We'll figure somebody else out who will help us to pay for the materials, and we'll build it ourselves. We'll get some company to buy it. We'll buy one that's already built. Some of these, like the DART mission, most of the components for the DART mission that they used to impact an asteroid, they were built with off-the-shelf parts. The blueprints are available on NASA, on nasa.gov. We can just take it and build it. We can just do it. All it takes is money. Am I going to motivate somebody to help me pay for it just by saying it's the right thing to do? Probably not. But I have a nonprofit organization. If I raise a bunch of money and then the Church of Korihor just keeps it, then we're violating in spirit and in practice what nonprofits are supposed to be for, and maybe breaking the law. So I'm going to use it to do the thing I'm committing to do. And if I used it to pay myself and get rich myself, then I'd be betraying my fellowship. I'd be betraying the whole purpose for which I built this thing. I won't do that. If I wanted to just get rich, I could probably figure out a way. I sit up at night and I figure out ways. I could probably start a new business and go out here and I could do this and I could sell this and then I could make a bunch of money. And as soon as I think that's what I'm going to spend the rest of my life doing, I want to crawl up into a hole in a rock and hope somebody throws that rock off a bridge. I mean, I'm sure I'd fail at some of those things too, but eventually I'd do one that made me rich if that's what I want to do with my life. But that's not what I want to do with my life. It's petty. And maybe that's your thing. All right, if that's your thing and you want to be the richest man in the world, how much time do you have left, Donald? I don't mean you any harm. I hope you live a long, healthy, happy life. I really do. I have no ill will towards you, sir. But nobody lives forever. These are the years where you got to think about what it meant. This is the legacy now, okay? If your legacy is you want to be the richest man in history, is that really what it's about? Is it about being richer than Elon? Is it about being richer than Jeff Bezos? I got it for you, man. I got the formula right here. Let's go mine asteroids. And you'll become the richest person in history. All I'm saying is, if we got to build nuclear reactors and nuclear engines to fulfill this mission of beating the Chinese and the Russians at something, let's do it for this. Let's do it to do this. Let's just, in the process, let's pull some of these asteroids out of the way so that they definitely aren't going to hit our precious blue dot. That's all I'm saying. Wasn't supposed to be a sermon, but turned into one. Ramen.
Empty pews to reason thought will defend our pale blue dot. If the danger's great, but the odds are small, we Corahors will heed the call. True saviors, but not from sin. We have no hope but what's within. We were not born to be heroes. Our chances small, but never zero. Non-zero chance. Take to the sky against all odds. We will fly. Count us down. Our last advance. This is our